I'm sorry, but it's very unlikely that you can become a hero." Those words echoed in infamy in his head. The words of the man he'd admired most in this world. The words that broke him. Today had been an exceptionally bad day for Izuku Midoriya. It was more than just the usual teasing and bullying. Despite being a second year in middle school, he was seen at the very bottom of the food chain. To make it worse, it had leaked that he was planning to attend UA High School. His childhood friend turned bully, Katsuki Bakugo, didn't take that news well. He stood menacingly above Deku with smoking palms and a wicked grin that always promised torment. Despite claiming to want to be a hero, he was the most villainous person Izuku knew, even if he didn't want to say it. After getting back his burnt notebook, Izuku thought that after a day like today, things could only get better. How wrong he was. On his way home, he took an underground tunnel to avoid Kachan and his gang, which led him to bump into the last person he would have ever expected. The symbol of peace and #1 hero, All Might. He was on the ground from the impact, completely unable to form intelligible words. He managed to stutter something along the lines of autograph, while handing the towering man his charred notebook. All Might happily signed his signature, and told the boy he was looking for a dangerous villain that lurks around the sewers. Just before he could leave, Izuku mustered his strength to ask a burning question. Is it possible for a quirkless kid to become a hero? All Might pondered his question. Quirkless would put him at a heavy disadvantage. But then he remembered the notes he had on all sorts of quirks and heroes. Knowledge like that would make up for lack of strength. But... And that brings us to now. With bitter tears in his eyes, Deku walks aimlessly through the streets of Musutafu. Being a hero was all he ever really wanted, and in a cruel twist of irony, the man who was always a light of hope for him crushed his hopes and dreams. Izuku was always compared to an empty glass, just a waste of space, but now he was shattered. He didn't have the strength to even try to put the pieces back together again. He felt like he had lost a reason to live. Stop. He was snapped out of his despair by a sudden scream. It sounded feminine. Somehow, Izuku had wandered to the entrance of a dark alley. He saw a tall, muscular man with pink hair and red marks on his face similar to war paint. Pinned to the wall was a young woman with silky black hair tied into a spiky ponytail. But what really scared Izuku was the man's quirk. Apparently he had the ability to turn his arms into sharp blades, which he did to his left arm. 3. Shut up, you bitch. Don't cause a scene. The young lady only uttered small whimpers and silent pleads for help as her attacker pointed his blade arm to her chest. I promise if you behave, we'll both get something out of this, he said with a perverted grin. The poor girl had tears in her eyes as she realized his sick intentions. 7. From his hiding spot behind a dumpster, Deku heard everything and was panicking himself. Crap, crap, crap. That girl's about to be raped. What do I do? I can't fight him head-on, think Izuku. He opened up his notebook and flipped through the pages. He landed on an entry about the ninja hero. Edge shot. He ended fights quickly with precise shots to the enemy's vital points. With his back turned, I could maybe strike his neck. But what if he can form armor there too? Before he could completely write off that idea, he looked down at his feet and saw a thick, rusted steel pipe. He picked it up and began forming a plan. He's focused on the girl so he won't notice an attack from behind, he thought as he stood upon the dumpster lid, careful not to make a sound. The other two were completely unaware of his existence, just as Deku hoped. Silently, he leapt. The man had hooked his blade in the girl's shirt. She clenched her eyes shut and braced herself for the worst. He licked his lips and said, I'm gonna enjoy tea goke, before taking a solid pipe to the nape of his neck. The young girl opened her eyes to see her attacker unconscious on the ground, and in front of her was a green-haired boy her age, holding a steel pipe. She put 2 and 2 together immediately, and was too overwhelmed with the situation to notice a draft. Meanwhile, Izuku observed the man before letting his guard down. Okay, I knocked him out. He sighed the adrenaline out of his body. Although, he noticed a piece of cloth next to the attacker. Before he could dwell on it, the girl he just saved ran up to him with teary eyes. Oh my goodness, you saved me, thank you, I'm extremely grateful, she bowed deeply. Izuku had a feeling he was unfamiliar with. She was thanking him, grateful for his actions. Like he was a... No, I'm just really lucky that my plan worked. I gambled and it turned out okay, that's all. Are you hurt any? The question died in his throat when he turned to finally get a good look at the girl. Before him was a stunningly beautiful young teenage girl with silky raven hair and onyx eyes that glimmered like a lake in the sunrise. Sporting a mature and developed body that would make many women jealous, standing a few inches taller than him. Even with all of that, the thing makes him freeze is her exposure. Neither of them heard it in the heat of the moment, but when Deku knocked out the thug, his blade swiped the girl's shirt and exposed her bra-clad chest. Izuku could barely handle the sight, turning red and immediately covering his eyes. The girl was confused until she looked down and noticed her wardrobe malfunction. She blushed as well, but didn't freak out nearly as much as her savior. Said hero was trying to retrieve the torn fabric, which was extremely difficult with his eyes covered. Holding it up to her and bowing, he screamed in pure mortification and embarrassment. "I'm so sorry, please forgive me, I beg of you." He was down on his hands and knees in front of the girl, who was very much confused. He saved her, and yet here he was acting as if he had committed the crime. Yes, he had a peek, but it was an accident, and he didn't even let himself stare for a second. The girl took part of her shirt and tried to cover herself a bit more. Please, you have nothing to apologize for," she tried to say. As soon as she was decent again, he stood up, still red and not looking her in the eye. He just stared at his feet. "I'm just glad you're okay. Bye." With speed rivaled by Sonic the Hedgehog, he ran off before the young lady could utter another word. Her eyes fell on the unconscious thug, unwillingly reliving the whole traumatizing ordeal. Then she stared at the path her savior, her hero, ran down. The unruly, curly green hair, emerald eyes, freckles in diamond formation on each cheek, somewhat round and baby-like face, a sweet voice. She burned every detail about him she could into her memory. Was he wearing an Aldera uniform? She thought. Her eyes then turned to the closed dumpster he jumped from. He left behind a blue notebook. Hero analysis for the future. She saw the page open to edge shot, which explains the idea for a blow to the neck. She picked it up and browsed. She was blown away by how detailed it was. He was easily on par with some of the quirk theory books she's read. On the inside of the cover, she saw his name. Izuku Midoriya. After properly patching herself up with help from her quirk, she held the notebook to her chest. The charred paper dirtied her clothing, but she didn't care. She was too focused on the boy. After a few minutes of standing idle, she decided to call the cops to arrest the attacker while he's still out cold. Meanwhile, Izuku's legs were a blur as he raced home, desperately trying to forget the image of the girl's heaving bosom. He was so rattled by the sight that he didn't even know he almost knocked Bakugo to the ground during his mad dash. He didn't even flinch when the explosive blonde was yelling death threats at the greenette, but at least he registered that Bakugo was angry. Finally, he made it back to the safety of his home. Reaching the front door, he burst into the living room and went straight to his bedroom. His mom wouldn't be home until later, so dinner was up to him, not that he minded. Truth be told, he sorely needed a healthy distraction. Throwing his backpack to the floor and throwing himself onto his bed, he let out a muffled scream into his pillow. "I saw too much," he thought as he rolled over to lie on his back. "I may have helped her, but even that rapist didn't purposely strip her. And I saw way more than he did. Oh God. I hope she doesn't tell the police to come after me too." Sitting up, he looked around his All Might-themed room. "I'm sorry, but it's very unlikely that you can become a hero." He took a handful of deep, calming breaths and tried to clear his head. "I need some air." Standing up slowly, he walks outside and leans on the railing outside his front door. His eyes were fixed on the setting sun as the warm late afternoon air blew in his face. "Thank you, I'm extremely grateful." He saved someone after number 1 told him he couldn't be a hero. "All Might, I disagree." Izuku looked to the horizon with a small smile and a feeling of closure in his heart. Even if I can't become a pro, he thought of the beautiful young lady he rescued in that dark alley, I can at least be someone's hero. Momo Yaoyorozu, heir to the Yaoyorozu fortune. With high social status, excessive amounts of money, and the beauty and body that could land her any man she wanted. Many people would kill to have a life like hers. But not all that glitters turns out to be gold. Momo's high status was a hindrance when it came to making casual connections. Some were afraid if they got on her bad side, she'd make their lives miserable. Most just thought someone as privileged as her would be a spoiled brat. Truth be told, she was a sweetheart, if a little blunt and naive. She did have friends, but they only hung out with her for her wealth and status. But due to Momo's sheltered upbringing, she never complained and thought her relationship with her friends was normal, not even questioning the monthly friendship fees. Her parents ran a multi-billion yen company, which of course kept them busy. There were plenty of nights where she had to eat alone, even when her parents were home. As independent as Momo believes she is, she's still a child. But that all pales in comparison to her biggest burden. As established before, Momo is a high-status beauty with mountains of money that overshadow Mount Fuji. It wouldn't even be a real stretch to call her a princess. So of course, there are other people of similar or equal status vying for a slice of her. Influential, powerful companies and families are always clamoring to partner with the wealthiest family in Japan. And many sought to do this through wedlock with the young heiress. 1. Ever since turning 13, she'd been introduced to all kinds of wealthy boys. Sometimes men. One after another, she met arrogant, sycophantic, shallow men who either want her family's money or her body. Usually both. The shallow marriage proposals only added to the burden on the Yaoyorozus. Given all that, one might understand why she was reluctant to tell her parents of her encounter. Positive it would put additional stress on their minds. But of course, she was smarter than to hide the truth from them. They returned the evening after Momo's experience, where she informed them of what happened. As expected, they were horrified at the mere prospect of their only daughter being attacked and defiled by a street thug. When she revealed that it was a young man that saved him, they got curious. She told them everything about her green-haired savior. Izuku Midoriya from Aldera Middle School. Momo's father mused. And he lives in an apartment building here in Musudafu. A middle class. Momo's mother said while holding the notebook Momo picked up. I only knew him for a few brief moments, but he seems like a peculiar boy. Momo grabbed her parents' attention. When he saw my chest, he turned away at such a speed I feared he would break his neck. After I covered myself, he apologized on his hands and knees. So far, everything about this boy was refreshing to both Yaoyorozu parents. I believe we should reward Mr. Midoriya for his heroism and manners. Mr. Yaoyorozu suggested. I had something in mind, but first I must return his property. Momo squeaked a bit with a light pink hue on her cheeks. This did not go unnoticed by Mrs. Yaoyorozu. Oh, I assume you'll be giving it to him yourself. A wise decision, daughter. A personal touch can go a long way. 2. Momo's blush intensified. It's simply what is right, mother. I never had the chance to properly thank him or I introduce myself. Something I plan to rectify. Her father understood her reasoning, but couldn't help but be cautious after what transpired. One of us should accompany you, to make sure nothing unsavory happens. I appreciate the concern, father, but I don't wish to come on too strongly for this. It would go much better if he didn't feel pressured. But, if it will put you at ease, I'll ask one of our security guards to drive me. She said as she climbed into a limousine the next morning. Nothing intimidating about that. The Midoriyas. It had been 3 days since he saved her. The raven-haired beauty he rescued in an alley. After he told his mother, she cried hysterically. Frightened that her only son threw himself in harm's way, proud that he used his brain to save someone, and sadness when she heard the other significant meeting he had that day. All Might himself told him it was impossible. Before she could attempt to console him or fear he could fall into an even deeper pit of depression, he looked at her with a smile. He assured her that, while it did sting, he was ready to let go of his dream. For in that moment, when he actually saved someone, and was thanked by that someone, it felt his dream became a reality. Inko was immensely proud of her son for his growth, and swore that no matter what he sought to do now, she would support him wholeheartedly. As long as he didn't put himself in such a dangerous situation. Currently, the Midoriya matriarch was washing the dishes after a filling breakfast. It was Saturday, so she felt like today would be a relaxing, stress-free day with her newly rejuvenated son. Just the two of them and a completely uneventful. Ding dong. Her attention was turned to the front door. A visitor. Inko wondered as she went to greet them. Mitsuki would have called if she wanted to visit, and it couldn't be the landlord. I work double shifts to pay rent. Inko opened the door. 1. On the other side, Momo was shuffling her feet and clutching her shoulder bag purse nervously. Why am I so nervous? I haven't even walked inside yet. The suitors of Med never seemed scared, or interested in me, really. Just my body and wealth. That depressing thought calmed her a bit, even if it made her bitter, and reminded her of partially of why she's here. Chin up, Momo. If his previous behavior is anything to go by, I mustn't seem hostile. 2. Suddenly, the door opened and she was greeted by a short, chubby green-haired woman. Hello there, can I help you? She asked. Mrs. Midoriya, Momo asked. Yes, and you are. Inko was eyeing this girl carefully. Silky raven hair in a ponytail, dark eyes and slightly taller than my Izuku. And a very prominent figure for her age. She matches the description Izuku gave me, but no, don't jump to conclusions, Inko. Even if it is her, how could she find out where we live? They didn't even exchange names. I apologize for the sudden intrusion, but my name is Momo Yaoyorozu. I, have something that I believe belongs to your son, Izuku. She then pulls out a blue notebook that Inko recognized instantly. That put enough pieces in place for Inko. Yaoyorozu, would you happen to be the young lady my Izuku rescued? Inko hated having to bring up such a delicate subject, but she needed to know before continuing. Momo blushed before answering. Yes, I am. After rescuing me, he ran off so quickly I never had a chance to thank him, and I thought it would mean more if I did that in person. Inko opened the door fully. Of course, dear. Please, come in. I can prepare tea and sweets if you'd like. Momo gladly entered. Tea, that's very kind of you, ma'am. She immediately saw the stark difference in their lifestyles. The living room and the kitchen are so close together, they might as well be in the same room. Even together, they're roughly the size of my closet at home. It's not cramped, though. More of a cozy abode. Izuku, you have a visitor. Inko called across the hall before leaving to prepare snacks. She felt all right with leaving the two of them alone for a bit. Izuku did say she wasn't from his middle school, so she likely didn't have to worry about her bullying him. Momo took a seat on one of the green sofas in front of the TV. 1. The boy in question left his room to greet their guest. Based on how his mother worded it, they were here for him specifically. Unless it's one of his bullies, who could possibly want to see him? He got his answer when he entered the living room. Sitting on the sofa was the gorgeous young lady he saved. When their eyes met, they both stiffened up. Momo stood up from her seat and clutched her purse. Hello. She said slowly. Hi. He waved nervously. Inko was just off to the side, listening with bated breath. I, believe this belongs to you. Momo pulled out his notebook and returned it to its owner. My notebook? Izuku asked as he held the book with shaky hands. You left it behind in the alley back then. Izuku was fearful. If she looked inside, she must have seen all the hero notes. Here comes the ridicule, good thing I'm used to it. So, guess you saw my notes. I know, it's kinda creepy and Saint Stalker-ish, he said sadly with nervous stutters. Actually, it's quite impressive. He was taken aback by what she just said. Did he hit his head, or did this beautiful girl just praise him for his useless hobby? He stared at her in honest shock, and Momo back-paddled. Forgive me, I haven't formally introduced myself. My name is Momo Yaoyorozu. Izuku shook his head slightly. I'm Izuku Midoriya, but I guess why you figured that already, It's nice to meet you, Yaoyorozu. Momo shuffled her feet. Also, I must apologize. I read the pages, she admitted with shame. Your notes and theories on so many different quirks and heroes were so detailed that I couldn't help myself. I completely invaded your privacy, and for that I sincerely apologize, Midoriya. She expected Midoriya to look at her with disdain, like anyone else would. Instead, his eyes were shining like wet emeralds in light. Wait, wet. Yaoyorozu continued, your notes are easily on par with many of the quirk textbooks I've read. Do you happen to have an intelligence quirk? Izuku's eyes immediately looked saddened, while Inko was biting her lip anxiously. No, I'm quirkless. I've just been studying quirks since I was little, wishing I had one. He didn't stutter, and his voice was little more than a whisper. Momo wasn't stupid, she knew how the quirkless were treated in this society. He had the self-image of obsolete trash. That explains why he seemed so afraid to talk to her back then. She could see it in his eyes. He grew up believing he was worthless. Momo didn't know how to approach this, so she just spoke from the heart. 3. That's even more amazing. Izuku stepped back. Her words and raised voice were extremely jarring to him. To have no power at all, but still find the bravery to act in a harrowing situation. Many heroes, or people in general, could only hope to have that kind of bravery. Izuku's brain completely stalled, trying to comprehend what she just said. She doesn't care that I'm quirkless, he thought with a light blush and a warm, bubbling sensation starting to take place in him. 1. And also, I never got a chance to properly thank you. Izuku looked up at her with bright green eyes. You stumbled upon a dangerous situation that had nothing to do with you, and yet you risked yourself to help a complete stranger. Back then, when that scum had me pinned in a spot where heroes weren't patrolling, I couldn't hope for a pro to arrive. And I couldn't use my quirk or he would have resorted to violence. Or even murder. Saying all of this out loud, and to her savior no less, was taking an emotional toll on the young heiress. Tears began to fill the corners of her eyes. I felt completely helpless. And you acted selflessly for a stranger. What I'm trying to say is. She deeply bowed to him. Thank you for being my hero, Izuku Midoriya. My hero. Those words echoed in his head endlessly. After years of being called useless and unfit to be a hero, this girl was saying everything he ever wanted to hear. She raised her head to look at him again. There wasn't a trace of dishonesty or ulterior motive. 1. Inko heard everything, and her heart was doing leaps. Izuku, I couldn't be happier for you, my sweet boy. She thought with joyful tears streaming down her cheeks. 3. Meanwhile, her son was having a moment he could only say was indescribable. This girl called his useless hobby impressive, didn't care that he was quirkless, and called him a hero. Her hero. Everything he'd ever wanted to hear, everything he dreamed of hearing was thrown at him by this incredible young lady. It was all overwhelming. His breathing hitched as he clutched his chest and hunched over slightly. Damn it, tears not now. Try as he might, he couldn't stop the dam from breaking. He wept, but kept as much composure as he could. He couldn't allow himself to look pathetic in front of her. It was only a few choked sobs and tears. Mental note. Cry my eyes out the moment she leaves. 1. Momo didn't just stand and let him weep. Reaching into her purse, she gave him a few tissues. Even this relatively minor kindness squeezed out some more tears from him. I'm sorry. Momo stopped his blubbering by helping him wipe his cheeks. Please, don't apologize for being a good person. A few minutes later, Izuku and Inko calmed down and they were all having lemon balm tea and cookies together. These cookies are lovely, Mrs. Midoriya, and the tea is very well prepared. Momo said with a kind smile. Oh, you're too kind. It's just something I put together. This Momo girl is wonderful. Izuku, please hold on to her. 4. After their snacks were done, the Midoriyas were saying a fond farewell to their lovely guest. That's when Momo remembered the other thing she came to do. Oh, it slipped my mind that there's something else I had to do. Izuku's curiosity was piqued. She already returned his property and thanked him. What else could she possibly have to do? She then looked at Izuku with her stunning onyx eyes. He began blushing. Midoriya, as I said, you are a selfless, kind-hearted person with great respect and intelligence. However someone could belittle you is beyond me, and if I may be completely honest, I'm amazed someone like you even exists. Which is why I want to ask. She took slow steps towards him. Deku felt his breathing halt, body freeze, and brain lag. She got down on one knee and held his left hand in both of hers. Both Midoriyas had absolutely no clue what was happening until the question left Momo's lips. Will you please marry me? All that was heard after was a thud as Izuku collapsed on the floor unconscious. Currently, in the Yaoyorozu mansion, Mr. and Mrs. Yaoyorozu were enjoying a relaxing late morning before having to worry about the work they brought home with them. The whole time, Mrs. Yaoyorozu had an amused grin on her face. Whatever has you in such a good mood, honey? Her husband asked. Oh, nothing, it's just our Momo and this little scheme of hers. Mr. Yaoyorozu let out a sigh as he reached for his cup of tea. I understand why she would do this. If she's already in a marriage that we approve of, then those hyenas will stop hounding for our daughter's hand. Still though, a boy she just met. I know he rescued her and has some decency, but, dear, Momo is mature enough to make smart, informed decisions. Besides, it couldn't be worse than seeing her interact with these vain narcissists. 5. Mr. Yaoyorozu put down his cup and sighed. You're right, dear. Of course I trust my daughter, and I don't harbor any ill will to this Izuku Midoriya. Perhaps I'm saddened that it seems like she's growing up so fast. You and I were married at 5 years older than her, and most people engaged 10 years older than her. And of course, I still have to meet the boy myself. I hate to suspect the lad, but it's possible that once he sees her lifestyle, he'll stop seeing her as a person, and just a mountain of profit. 7. In the Midoriya household, everything went dark. He could only groan lightly as he felt like he was floating, not in a good way. He began to hear his mother's muffled voice. As light slowly entered his eyes, he woke up on the couch with his mother holding his hand and an open pack of smelling salts. He groaned as he held his head and sat up. Izuku, are you okay, sweetheart? Inko asked, concern evident in her voice. Yeah, but I just had the craziest dream. Oh, did you now? Inko asked slowly, unsure if it would be a good idea to let him continue talking. Yeah, the angel of a girl I mentioned showed up at our door and called me her hero before proposing to me. 2. Angel, a voice squeaked out, from across the room. Izuku slowly looked ahead of him and saw a red-faced Momo sitting on the opposite couch. It was real, wasn't it? Izuku asked, very fearful of the truth. The two ladies in the room slowly nodded. Izuku took a deep breath and grabbed a nearby pillow. Excuse me for a moment. He covered his face with the cushion to muffle his mortified screams. It was all hard to make out, but Inko and Momo could translate some of it to, kill me now, I'm ready. 9. Once he was finished venting, he bowed to Yaoyorozu in shame and embarrassment. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to I mean, why you are be beautiful, but I shouldn't have blurted it out. He apologized so quickly with so many stutters that most of it sounded like gibberish. Momo stopped him with 2 words and a small smile. Thank you. Deku stopped running his mouth, and observed her expression and body language. Blushing cheeks, lips in a small smile, clutching her skirt, avoiding eye contact. Was she flustered by Deku? 1. Inko found the whole scene so endearing that she almost completely forgot about. Did you really ask to marry me? That, I did, unless you're already in a relationship. I wouldn't want to. Izuku flailed his arms. No, I'm very much single. Though neither of them could comprehend how the person in front of them was single. But marriage. Could you please explain? Because at this point, I'm totally lost. Momo gulped slightly and reintroduced herself. My family owns Yaoyorozu Industries. A moment of silence overtook. Before Izuku's outburst. Yaoyorozu Industries. You mean the company that produces first-rate support items for heroes and difficult quirks? Momo was slightly blown back by his geeking out over her family's company. I thought your name was familiar, I just couldn't put my finger on it. Some of the highest-ranked pros today wouldn't be nearly as great without the products your family makes. That's so cool. It seems he geeks out over all things relating to quirks and heroes. That's extremely kind of you to say, Midoriya. Inko pulled out her phone while Izuku had his nerd spree, and looked up her family's company. Hundreds of thousands of top-class support items, hundreds of hero sponsorships worldwide, branches in 5 different continents. Every word she read pushed her closer to going into cardiac arrest. She wouldn't dare to guess their bank account balance. Or how many accounts they have. 1. As she scrolled down, she read about the positives this company delved in. Shelters for endangered species, funding research into quirk science and research, donating to schools and hospitals nationwide. I'm glad to see they put that money to good use. And that this family produced such a kind young lady. Maybe I'm jumping the gun, but why don't those two start dating? 1. I'm confused, though, Izuku began. Why your family does incredible things, you could be with whoever you wanted. So marry me. Inko's eyes bulged out of her skull. Ah, yes, that's why. Well, I have been introduced to boys of similar status, but you'd be surprised at how disagreeable they can be at times. But you're just special. Of course, you're free to refuse. But I do still feel indebted to you, you shouldn't. Izuku cut her off without hesitation. I didn't do what I did expecting some reward. 1. Momo was even further amazed. He's just that pure. Finally, the only adult in the room spoke up. With all due respect, Miss Yaoyorozu, marriage is a very serious topic that should not be taken lightly, regardless of the arrangements. Forgive me, but I'd feel more comfortable discussing this with your parents as well. 2. Of course, I merely came to propose. A proper discussion will be held at my residence. She pulled out a piece of paper and wrote on the front and back of it. You may come whenever you have an answer, and so you know, I'm not trying to force you into this. It's up to you, Midoriya. Thank you very much for your hospitality. With that she picked up her things and left. Izuku went to look out the front door and saw her drive off in a limo. He closed the door and leaned his back against it, sliding down until he was sitting on the doormat. What the hell just happened? He asked absent-mindedly. I don't know, honey. But I think I need something stronger than the tea we had. Inko said as she went to her bedroom. I'm gonna take a very cold shower. Actually, maybe an ice bath would be better. After taking a much-needed rest period to absorb all the information, the two of them got to discussing. What the heck am I supposed to say to her? Izuku screamed while running his hands through his hair and pacing back and forth. Inko was dead silent, staring at the piece of paper Momo left behind. I mean, she's really beautiful and kind, and she doesn't even care about my quirklessness. Although he didn't say it, she seemed to be everything he'd ever wanted in a woman. Inko was still silent. My first time being a hero and this happens. Why can't I ever just win without some kind of comeuppance? Mom, are you going to say anything? 2. His mother just stared at the paper with shocked, hollow eyes that scared him a little. Izuku took a look at the paper in her hands. Her address and contact details, nothing all that remarkable. But then he turned it over and saw something that made his heart stop. A check, to him, for 30 million yen. Izuku turned to stone before crumbling onto the ground. The scariest part was that was chump change to the Yaoyorozus. 4. Why am I being tested like this? Izuku asked his mother, or the universe to answer him. Inko finally pulled herself together and picked up her son to sit up on the floor. 1. Izuku, how do you feel about all this? Izuku looked at his hands. I'm not sure how to feel. She's really amazing, and I can tell her heart's in a good place. But, marriage, I mean, I've never even had a girlfriend. I don't want to start talking bad about myself, but I don't get why she'd want to marry me when there are guys who could buy her the world. 3. Inko held her son's hand. Izuku, do you want my honest opinion on this? She asked in a tone that roused caution in him. Yes, please. He answered. I'm scared. Not of her, of course, she's an absolute angel. He covered his face at being reminded of what he said earlier. But her family is extremely powerful. I know it's wrong to judge someone before actually meeting them, but they could ruin our lives if they chose to. And I know arranged marriages like this were encouraged back then, and still are now in some places. But so many of them become abusive and toxic quickly. And then there's this. 2. She held up the check that caused them both to freeze earlier. When it got to the end, she started talking more like it was a business deal, like she was acquiring you. I know she didn't mean it like that, but it felt like she was literally trying to buy you. And what's more, she didn't seem to see any issue. Like she believed there wasn't a serious issue. Forgive me, but that girl doesn't have a proper grasp of the seriousness of marriage. Izuku was taking everything she said to heart, but he looked straight at her when he felt hot tears landing on his hand. 3. But, when I heard her talk to you, all the wonderful things I know she genuinely meant. I couldn't describe my happiness. For once, someone other than me or Mitsuki or Masaru could see past your quirklessness, and see you for what you are, a smart, heroic young man. And I admit that I would love to see you in a relationship with her. But marriage, honey, you're still in middle school. To be honest, I'm not sure what you should do. She took a moment to wipe her eyes and tear-stained cheeks. One. But it's a good thing it's not up to me. Izuku's eyes widened when he heard her. Son, you're 14 years old and you've already shown me you're mature and smart enough to make important decisions. I know that you're still young, and this is the kind of thing you're supposed to face a decade later, but I meant what I said, honey. Inko now held both of his hands and looked at him with teary eyes and a smile. No matter what you decide, I'll support you. Izuku couldn't. He just couldn't and started crying. He truly had the most wonderful, patient mother. He wept into her chest for a while, as she stroked his back to calm him. After finally collecting himself, Deku rose to his feet. Mom, I know you're right to be cautious. I get your concerns, and yeah, jumping into marriage so soon would likely spell disaster. But, when she thanked me, she cried, let herself be vulnerable, she trusted me enough to do that. I think it was that moment that I started feeling something. I think I need a second opinion. 1. That's fair considering how things turned out with me and Hisashi. Inko thought. Izuku thought for a moment. Who else could he possibly ask about this? His eyes shot open as he hurriedly put on his favorite red sneakers, grabbed his short-sleeve hoodie and ran out the door. Going to Aunt Mitsukibai. Izuku was taking a brisk afternoon jog to clear his cluttered mind. With his situation, he needed help. Desperately. Running was the first step. The exercise will help him get his thoughts in order. Many pros could only hope to be as brave as you. I'm amazed someone like you even exists. Thank you for being my hero, Izuku Midoriya. Will you please mar one more lap around the block? Just one more. Aunt Mitsuki's probably not going anywhere on a Saturday afternoon, right? No hurry. Izuku began sprinting away from Momo's kind words, now doing his 5th lap around the block. Meanwhile, 2 shady delinquents were making their way to a friend's house. One had short, black hair, and the other had long, pale brown hair. Geez, dude, I don't know if I can handle another week before summer break. The black-haired one groaned with a cold root beer can in hand. Tell me about it. I swear they keep us in that hellhole to make us suffer longer. But then again, we could just ditch, not like it would matter at this point, the brown-haired boy commented. Their conversation was interrupted by the sounds of hurried footsteps. The 2 delinquents looked behind them to see Deku. The greenette just dashed past them without a word, leaving them surprised. Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't he supposed to start running after we've threatened him? The black-haired boy asked. Yeah, he's been doing that a lot lately. It's starting to piss me off. 4. Before continuing their stroll, they realized something about the nerd's path. Hold up. Deku's running toward. Oh man, guess he's finally suicidal. Meanwhile, Deku had finally reached his destination, after circling around it a few times to cool down. He was huffing and puffing with his hands on his knees. He walked up to the door and heard yelling on the other side. Yup, she's definitely home. Izuku thought. The boy slapped his cheeks a few times, right on the freckles, hyping himself up. He did that until his cheeks were red for a different reason. As he was still hyping himself up, the extras he passed by finally caught up. They saw him about to knock. Should we, do something or? The brown-haired boy asked. Nah, dude, I have a feeling this'll be good. His friend answered. Deku knocked, but no one answered. Unsurprised, he knocked a little harder. He heard yelling that muffled his knocks. Letting his frustration and stress get the better of him, he pulled his fist back and slammed it. Gah, motherfucking son of a. Deku. Snapping out of it, Deku looked in front of him to see the door wide open, and in his path, Katsuki Bakugo. With a bleeding nose. Catch wag. The next thing he knew, he was grabbed by the collar and lifted slightly off the ground. Izuku stared into wrathful red eyes of blazing hatred. His free hand ignited with small bursts of heat and orange light. 2. The spectators behind them stared with jaws on the ground and eyes the size of dinner plates. Deku just punched Katsuki in the face. Yup, he's dead. This little spectacle attracted the attention of Mitsuki Bakugo. Katsuki, what the hell are you doing now? Stay out of this, you hag. The boy yelled at his mother. Oh no, how could I forget? How could I be so stupid? I can't believe I didn't realize. Izuku realized his fatal oversight just as the other two ran away from the Bakugo household. 3. Kachan lives here. Mitsuki had managed to pry her son's grip off of Izuku and she was in a heated argument with him. What's your damage, attacking a guest? And it's Izuku no less. That little bastard had it coming. He punched me in the face. I just wish it was enough to knock some sense into ya. By this time, Masaru Bakugo had come to investigate the commotion and allowed Izuku in. Izuku, did you really? It was an accident. I was knocking on the door and I didn't realize it was open, and I completely forgot he lives here. Izuku blurted out, oh, I'll make sure you don't forget again. Come here. Before Katsuki could murder Deku, he was held back by his mother. One good punch doesn't even begin to make up for the bullying. Go on Izuku, pay him back. Deku couldn't even look at Kachan without trembling. No, that's not even why I'm here. Mitsuki threw her son aside with him screaming profanities. Then what can we do for you? She asked with a smile. 6. Mitsuki and Izuku on the couches in front of each other, while Masaru was in the kitchen trying to treat Katsuki's bloody nose. Keyword. Trying. I don't fucking need help from Deku's weak-ass punch. He said with a nasally voice. Just a little bit of ice will help, and a cloth to clean you up. Masaru said with a shaky voice. 2. So what's on your, and you should hold your head up to keep blood from dripping. I said fuck off, old man. Mitsuki was interrupted by her husband and child. 1 sec. Both of you shut the hell up. I am trying to have a conversation with my nephew. That got them quiet. Well, a low growl escaped Katsuki's lips and a frightened yelp left Izuku and Masaru. 1. So, what's on your mind Izuku? Mitsuki asked kindly. Oh, well there's this girl, gonna stop you right there. Katsuki interrupted. Lick her boots and thank her for acknowledging you at all. Katsuki received a smack across the head for that. Don't listen to the brat, please go on. She probably wouldn't want me spreading it around that a quirkless Deku saved her, so then. I, helped her out on the street. Lying to his aunt and uncle figures left an awful taste in his mouth, but was necessary. He could tell his mother the real story only because he knew Momo's parents would find out as well. He can't go around spreading her awful experience to just anyone, that would be grossly insensitive to her. I think I see where this is going, Mitsuki said in a gleeful tone. I'm gonna stop you right there. Katsuki spoke up again. No girl would ever want anything to do with you, Deku. Izuku looked down at his feet, causing Mitsuki to smack her son even harder. 1. Don't listen to Katsuki, Izuku, Masaru said, sitting down next to the boy. You're a nice, clever young man, and any girl would be lucky to date you. Izuku perked up at that. Thanks, uncle, but here's the thing. She kind of came onto me. 1. Gonna stop you right there. Katsuki again. If she approached you, she's either hideous, or broken looking for cash. Or playing an elaborate prank on you. He couldn't have been more wrong about the first two. Why the hell are you still here? Mitsuki screamed with yet another smack. Cause the damn nerd screwed up my schedule and now I gotta wait another hour for the next train to the arcade. 1. Doesn't mean you gotta stay here. Mitsuki yelled, surprising the other two. Fine. Fuck you all. Especially you, shitty Deku. His gaze hardened on the squeamish nerd. Get it through your skull. No one wants quirkless scum like you ruining everything. The best relationship you could hope for is being a plaything for someone with actual power. With that, he slammed the door on his way out. 1. Mitsuki was infuriated that her own son could talk to Izuku with such disdain. Masaru was trying to raise Deku's spirits again, but it didn't really help much. What if Kachan's right? Sure, she seems nice now, but what if I embarrass her or screw something up and she hates me? It would probably be better if I just keep my mouth shut and do whatever she wants. Chop. Asterisk. Izuku was snapped out of his self-loathing by a chop to the head. It was from Mitsuki, and she had a bitter expression on her face. Honey, enough with the moping, Izuku. You think she's gonna want you if you're crying your eyes out. Izuku looked up at her with confusion. If you can't see for yourself how much of a catch you are, how do you expect to really build a good relationship? You wanna make her carry the burden of your self-doubt. Of course not. He answered. Then take some confidence in yourself. She certainly doesn't want to see you all depressed. You're far more charming and polite than the boys in your class, and always in the top 5 of your studies. You don't even realize how much of a keeper you are. And this girl deserves you for being the first person your age to see it. 1. Izuku was at a loss for words. Sure, his Aunt Mitsuki is loud, blunt, hot-tempered and speaks whatever is on her mind, usually in shouts. But she is honest, brutally honest. If Deku really was just a worthless liability, she wouldn't be saying any of this to him. It actually made him tear up. Obviously, you know how to put others first, which is probably one of her favorite things about you. But don't forget, you need to speak up, too. This relationship she's proposing is for the two of you, right? Which means you have as much place to speak as her. Make sure you're heard, that your opinion is acknowledged. She's the one that came onto you, right? Then show her she's not the one setting the rules. 2. Izuku was taking every word she said to heart. He wiped his tears as Masaru rubbed his back. He looked back up to the woman with a determined face. Right, I know what I'm going to do now. Mitsuki smiled. Atta boy. Mitsuki and Masaru were giving their final goodbyes and best wishes to the boy. Best of luck, Izuku, I know you'll make the right choice. Masaru said. Thank you, uncle. Sooner or later, you're gonna have to tell us about this potential lady friend of yours. Izuku blushed at Mitsuki's words. Alright, thank you for the advice, auntie. With a final bow, the boy left. One more thing, Mitsuki called out. When's the wedding? Izuku completely froze and turned into a tomato, sputtering nonsense like he was about to shut down. I'm just teasing. Take it easy, kid. Izuku released a sigh as Mitsuki closed the door. Only a joke, of course. He smacked his cheeks again. Get it together, Izuku. You have an answer for Yaoyorozu. First thing tomorrow evening, I'm giving my answer. With that, the boy walked off with a pep in his step. Meanwhile, Masaru began. Your whole speech about being assertive to Izuku. Mitsuki looked at her husband. Well, that's the advice my mom gave me. And look, my love life turned out awesome. Masaru shook his head. I'm surprised you didn't say he should punch her in the face. Mitsuki laughed. Didn't need to. You see how he decked Katsuki. He knows what to do, even if his brain doesn't. 2. The next day, Momo had difficulty focusing on her studies. Her mind would wander to the boy she proposed to. She had been proposed to numerous times, and hadn't felt bad about saying no to any of them. She thought back to her conversation with the Midoriyas. She may have been a bit forward, but was there really a way to sugarcoat it? She felt a sting of guilt that grew slowly the more she thought about it. In a way, she was using Midoriya as a shield. Before she could dwell on it further, a servant entered her room. Lady Momo, and Izuku Midoriya is here with his mother. Your parents are speaking with them now in the grand hall. She was caught off guard by how quickly he made up his mind. Thank you, I'll prepare myself. Momo said. A few minutes earlier, Izuku and Inko were standing outside the ridiculously huge mansion. Izuku. Yeah, Mom, I have no words. Neither do I. The front doors opened and the head butler was there to usher them inside. Their eyes widened at the regal furniture and grand size of the entry room. Just the first room they see is the size of their whole apartment. Remembering their manners, they ceased their gawking and were guided to the grand hall and were met by a man with short black hair and a tall, imposing figure. The woman beside him was a few inches shorter with black hair and long sideburns, and a curvaceous body that made it clear who Momo inherited her figure from. Both were dressed in lavish clothing. The head butler bowed and left them to discuss. Ah, the Midoriyas. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. Mr. Yaoyorozu said. My name is Sakusei Yaoyorozu, and this is my wife, Ai. Inko and Izuku shook hands with them, trying to keep calm and collected. Thank you very much for welcoming us into your lovely home. Izuku said. Oh, think nothing of it. A little hospitality doesn't balance the scales, Midoriya. I said with a smile. Soon, all four of them were seated. Izuku and Inko quickly noticed that Momo wasn't with them. First off, we owe you many thanks, Izuku Midoriya. Sakusei started off. Had it not been for your bravery in defending our daughter, we don't know what would have happened to her. 1. Our child is the most precious thing in our life, so you can imagine how much the thought of her being harmed frightens us. I continued the sentiment. We simply cannot express our gratitude to you, my boy. Thank you. Izuku started getting slightly flustered from all the praise. Don't worry about it, really. I'm happy enough knowing your daughter is safe. The two of them observed the boy carefully while still appearing relaxed. 1. I partly expected him to mention how he felt about the whole situation. But he hasn't said a word to make this about himself. You're earning points, my boy. Sakusei thought with a smile. Well, with that settled, I began. I assume you understand why we're here. Our daughter visited you yesterday with a proposal. Inko spoke up. Yes, she did, but are you both truly okay with it? The Yaoyorozus looked at each other before back at Inko. Admittedly, it caught us by surprise. To marry a boy she met in an alley. But we saw that it was in fact a sound decision. Sakusei said. Others who have sought our daughter were truly seeking to line their pockets. Surely, you can understand we wouldn't want her to spend the rest of her life with a self-serving egotistic. They just wanted the best for their child. A sentiment Inko could undoubtedly relate to. 1. So, when she told us about this selfless, brave-hearted young man, we couldn't really refuse. I commented. Which brings us to what we truly want to ask. Izuku Midoriya, how do you feel about becoming our Momo's groom? 1. There it is. The question that's been hovering over his head and keeping him up at night. Izuku gripped his pants nervously and swallowed thickly, remembering the advice he received from Mitsuki. Well, I'm extremely honored that you and Yaoyorozu think so highly of me that I'd be a suitable life partner. But I have to ask, where is your daughter now? This question was not anticipated by the two of them. In her room, why? Sakusei asked. Well, sir, considering she's the one who came and proposed to me, I believe she has more of a right to hear my answer than anyone else. Sorry if I'm overstepping, but, he looked up at them with unwavering eyes. I'd rather she be here for this as well. 1. Surprised yet again, the other suitors never asked for the daughter's involvement when voicing their decision. This boy is something else. Have it your way, we'll fetch her shortly. The two of them left for their daughter, letting Izuku release a breath he didn't know he was holding. How are you holding up, honey? Inko asked. I'm honestly surprised I didn't throw up. Izuku answered. You're doing great so far, they clearly like you. Just speak from the heart and you'll be fine. Meanwhile, Sakusei and I were walking through the halls of their enormous house. They finally began to discuss their thoughts about Izuku having had the pleasure of meeting him for themselves. Penny for your thoughts, darling. Sakusei said. He seems like a very fine young man. Can't remember the last time I said that. 1. Yes, he's completely unlike any of the sycophants we've met. And he truly cares about our daughter's feelings since he asked for her himself. Sakusei concurred. 1. And I noticed that he maintained eye contact, never letting his gaze wander once. Quirkless or not, how is it possible he's been single for so long? They finally reached Momo's bedroom and knocked. Momo dear, it's your parents. May we come in? 5. She granted them permission to enter. They saw their daughter sitting on the edge of her bed. She was wearing a white blouse with black floral prints and a tan gold skirt reaching her ankles with high-heel boots. She also had her hair down with a small touch of makeup. What is his answer? She asked. We don't know. Her father answered. He actually asked us to bring you to hear it yourself. He said that you have more of a right to know than we do. I said. Momo's cheeks turned rosy pink at hearing that. I have to say, you really know how to pick them, sweetheart. 7. Momo stood up and walked towards the door. Well, I shouldn't keep him waiting. But she was stopped by her mother. Maybe wipe off the makeup and tie your hair. I don't quite think he's ready to see your hair down. Momo looked at her slightly confused. Does my hair down really make much of a difference? They both nodded. Sometimes, it's the little things that matter most, Momo. 4. Soon thereafter, the Yaoyorozus returned with their daughter in tow. When she and Izuku made eye contact again, they blushed and instinctively looked to the side. The parents found this endearing. They all sat at the long dining table, with the Midoriyas facing the Yaoyorozus. So, Midoriya, may we have your answer now? Sakusei asked. The boy gulped. The moment had finally arrived, and everyone was sitting on the edge of their seat, eager to know his response. I trust you, Izuku. Inko thought. I'm not sure I've ever been so nervous before. Momo thought. It will be lovely having Midoriya in the family. Such a gentleman like him is a breath of fresh air. I thought, sure of what Midoriya's answer would be. It should be obvious what his answer will be. While I don't wish to doubt him, he will be automatically granted a share in the Yaoyorozu fortune and a home in our mansion. Don't feel bad, my boy, you've more than earned it. Sakusei thought. After an eternity, Izuku opened his mouth. I'm sorry, but I can't marry you. 15. Words cannot describe the varying degrees of shock felt by everyone else in the room as they stared at Izuku with the widest of eyes, some with covered mouths. Even Inko was caught severely off guard. The Yaoyorozus were utterly flabbergasted and unable to see why he would say no. To marrying Momo, the closest thing to a literal princess. Not to mention what he would gain from saying yes. The riches, the power, the status, the heiress's sexy bod. You get the point. So why would he decline an offer countless others would kill for? An offer that would likely never come again for the rest of his life. 1. Let me explain. Izuku finally spoke up again after the deafening silence. He firmly locked his eyes on the still stunned and stunning Momo. Yaoyorozu, you're amazing. Inside and out. For the first time in forever, you were the first person to treat me kindly. And you don't need to repay me, because you already have. I'm not saying what happened to you is a good thing, but when I saved you, it felt like I had finally reached my dream. I could move on, move forward, because I met you. You said I was something special. Well, right back at you. You don't care that I'm quirkless, you trust me enough to let me in your home, your life, and before I met you, I never would have believed anyone would ever want to be with me. Admittedly, part of me still does. Like it's all a wonderful dream I never want to wake up from. Every word Izuku uttered was melting the hearts of the listeners, especially Inko and Momo. It was taking a great deal of strength to keep from letting their tears flow. Sakusei and I were in complete shock of the young man's huge heart of gold. How in the hell has he been single for so long? 10. But the issue is I don't know you. You're a bright, respectful and kind-hearted lady. All that is obvious, which is why the idea of being with you gives me butterflies. But I can't throw myself into marriage with someone I've only known for a few days. And, to be completely honest with you, I don't think you even understand the seriousness of marriage. I mean, you and your parents talk about it like it's a business transaction. I'm not saying I blame you for that. Given how different your life is from mine, there are things about you I don't understand. 1. Marriage is a lifelong commitment, not something you do for gain or profit. The Yaoyorozus thought deeply about Midoriya's words. Momo's parents were brought together in a similar manner, but they made the best of their marriage. They could only pray their daughter would be just as lucky. But it's entirely possible that the more twisted aspects of their class twisted their views on certain things. It was honestly funny, and deeply sad that a child had to lecture them on such mature matters. I hope you can understand that I just can't bring myself to marry someone I don't know. Izuku said as he stood up from his seat. But, that's not to say I wouldn't like to get to know you. Momo looked up at him with confusion and moist eyes. He began talking again as he walked around the table. I want to know more about you. What you like, what you dislike, your cute habits, your hobbies, your dreams. I want to know what makes you you. He was now standing in front of Momo after she had repositioned her chair to face him. And before we start talking about marriage, let's start with this. Izuku got down on one knee and gently held Momo's hand in both of his. A deep scarlet rouge permeated her cheeks as the tears she tried so hard to suppress began to overwhelm her. Momo Yaoyorozu, would you be willing to accept me as your boyfriend? 12. My baby, when did you grow up so fast? Inko internally screamed as she bit her lip to suppress her tears. 4. He's an angel. How could we have been so lucky to cross paths with him? Momo, never let this boy go. I thought to herself. I'm at a loss for words. How can anyone be so considerate and noble? It feels like he puts everything I've done for my daughter to shame. But I truly can't think of anyone better for her, Sakuse thought with a smile of approval. 3. Momo, who thought of everything she'd done since meeting Izuku, was feeling even more guilty about her reasons for marrying him. He's right. About everything. I was only thinking about myself and my feelings, and barely even gave any thought to how he feels. Despite that, he's still. Momo wiped away a stray tear and gave a wobbly smile. If you'll have me, I'd love to be your girlfriend. Soon thereafter, they traded numbers. The contact Momo gave them was her house number, and Izuku got her personal number and promised to get to know each other better before any serious discussions. Izuku and Inko were stepping inside their car and let out a huge sigh. Izuku, you could not have handled that better. I'm so proud of you. Inko gushed. Izuku just had a tired smile as he stared ahead of him. I just took yours and Aunt Mitsuki's advice, to trust my heart and stand my ground. I'm just glad it went well. Now, if you'll excuse me. Izuku collapsed in his seat and completely shut down. Inko kissed her resting boy on the forehead before starting the car and driving home. 8. Meanwhile, Momo was getting nestled in her silky, luxurious bedsheets, trying to fall asleep after the most emotionally exhausting ordeal she'd ever experienced. But, to her dismay, she found herself completely unable to fall asleep, no matter how tired she was. Izuku. Her thoughts were interrupted by her mother's intrusion. Trouble sleeping, dear? Momo nodded wordlessly. Please stop me if I'm overstepping, but that young man. You've struck a gold mine. Or perhaps, emerald would better suit him. 2. Momo sat up and looked at Mother, did I really do the right thing? I had a perplexed expression at her daughter. Whatever do you mean? I mean, when I proposed marriage. I didn't demand anything, but initially, the main reason I considered it was because I wouldn't have to hear about marriage proposals ever again. Am I? No better than they are. 1. I enveloped her daughter in a loving hug, letting her silently weep into her chest. Sweetheart, you are nothing like them. Don't you ever utter nonsense like that again. Midoriya saw the smartest, kindest young lady in you. And he said no to engagement because he wants a long-lasting relationship with you. Momo snuggled into her mother a little longer and gave her a muffled, thank you. And if you have doubts about your choice, I have something I'd like to tell you. Momo looked up at her with expectant eyes. The check you gave him, to hopefully pay him back. Momo nodded. Not a single one of our accounts lost a single yen within the last 40 hours. Good night, my child. 1. I left her daughter after giving her a goodnight kiss and tight squeeze. Momo felt like she could finally get some rest. Right now, a good night's rest would do wonders for her body and mind. She shut her onyx eyes, wearing a small smile on her face, eager to end off the day on a high. Ding. Asterisk. Nope. Apparently, retiring to the land of dreams was a luxury the young heiress would not have just yet. Reaching over to her nightstand, she grabbed her phone, and saw she had received a text. At first, her heart began racing at the thought of Izuku messaging her already. It wasn't that late, and she could very well understand if he couldn't sleep, but messaging her now. Hiya Yaoyorozu, you down for an all-day shopping trip tomorrow? It's almost summer, so no harm in ditching. Nope, it was one of her friends, and their usual excursions. It was difficult for the heiress to stay loyal to them since they sometimes did things she did not approve of. But she had difficulty saying no to them, and they did keep her from feeling lonely at school. Before she gave answer to her friend, she took a moment to look at the newest name on her contact list. 1. My apologies, I won't be able to join you. Tomorrow, I'm taking some time to myself. Something exceedingly important has come up, and it requires my full attention. Perhaps we can reschedule for just an afternoon later in the week. So polite and courteous. Oh, sure. Guess whatever is going on with you takes priority over spending time with your friends. Don't worry about it. 2. Momo felt a sharp pang to her heart, but shrugged it off. She would make it up to them. Perhaps, she could introduce them to Izuku. But, as a friend instead of boyfriend. Without verbally discussing it, she felt like they would both prefer to keep it hidden until they're comfortable enough to be completely open about it. With her conversation with her friends out of the way, she switched to Midoriya's contact. A bead of sweat appeared on her forehead as her face started heating up again. Sigh, I know I'm extremely late asking myself this, but what am I doing? Meanwhile, Izuku was passed out on his bed with his clothes still on, minus the shoes. His mother had carried him up the stairs, through the door and into his room. Sure, carrying her 14-year-old son up several flights of stairs was an excruciating task, but considering the kind of mental strain he'd been put through, it was the least she could do for him. 3. VVVV. He woke up when he felt something vibrating against his chest. Looking into his short-sleeved jacket, he pulled out his phone. He groggily checked the bright screen and saw he had a new message. From Yaoyorozu. Yaoyorozu. He woke up instantly. The boy's hands shook as he forced his thumb to tap the notification. He did it, but then his eyes completely shut. Digging deep inside himself, he found the courage to peek at his screen and read the message. Good evening, Midoriya. I apologize for messaging you at this ungodly hour, but I've been pondering what you said about wanting to get to know me. I'd just like to say that I share the sentiment, and, if it's not an inconvenience to you, we could meet up sometime and get to know each other better. 1. Izuku's face turned many different shades of red. Holy woe, that was her basically asking me out. Though I did say I want to be her boyfriend. Oh God, I said I want to be her boyfriend. Shaking his head rapidly, he typed out his response. 1. Oh, of course. That sounds great. Did you have a date and time in mind? 4. Did he stutter over a text? Momo thought with a small giggle. 1. I know it's short notice, but I'm taking tomorrow off to get my thoughts in order. Would that be agreeable? No, she's moving quickly again. That's exactly what almost made him say no. He's going to chastise her for pretty much ignoring him. That's not a problem. I can make time. How about somewhere casual? Where it's like, there are other people, but it's calm and easy to talk. So it's not a bother asking you to pick the location. Honestly, I just want to make sure I'm doing my part, too. Picked this up in the morning. Yes, today was truly taxing. I truly am sorry for putting you through that, after you went through the trouble to rescue me. It's not your fault, and I'd do what I did again in a heartbeat if I had to. She could almost hear the certainty in his words. Well, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Good night, Midoriya. Likewise. Good night, Yaoyorozu. Izuku put his phone down and stared at his ceiling. Holy woe, I just got a date with a girl. It was more of a casual hangout session than a date, but it's a start. Monday morning, and a bright and early start to the day for Izuku Midoriya. He woke up at 10 a.m. Stretching his stiff limbs, the greenette yawned deeply, smacking his lips to get the pungent morning breath out of his mouth. At least he doesn't have to worry about bedhead with that green mop. 1. Soon, his door opened and Inko walked in with a tray of breakfast and a cup of iced tea. Morning, sweetie. She greeted warmly. Morning, Mom. Izuku greeted back. Sitting up straight, he could smell the heavenly aroma of his mother's cooking and begin enjoying it in bed. While he ate, Inko noticed her son seemed very calm, which wasn't a bad thing considering the events of the last few days. Honey, did you check the time? Putting down his chopsticks, Deku reached for his phone and looked at the digital clock on his screen. His eyes bulged out of his skull and he started choking. 10:05 a.m. I slept in that late. 1. Before you panic, I called the school and told them you were sick. I just thought that you'd need a day to relax, and it's the last week of school so it's not that bad. After drinking a few large gulps of cold tea, Izuku gave his mother a relieved smile. Thanks, Mom, I really appreciate it. With that, the mother left her son to enjoy his meal in peace. Just as Izuku was cleaning his plate, his phone vibrated. Yaoyorozu. Good morning, Midoriya. How are you? He almost did a spit take with his mouth full of food. Instead he choked again and washed it down with his tea again. Apparently, it's one of those days where he thinks he can relax, but something else just comes up and says, nope. What's that phrase? No rest for the weary. He wondered. 1. Midoriya. Hi, good morning to you too, Yaoyorozu. I'm well, thank you. How is your morning? Yaoyorozu. Very nice, I had an enjoyable breakfast. I decided not to attend school today, and I assume you know why. Midoriya. Trust me, I get it. I only woke up a couple minutes ago. Yaoyorozu. Haha, she laughed. She typed out her laughter. Is that a good sign? Is she laughing at me or does she find me funny? What's the difference? Oh, she's typing again. 1. Yaoyorozu. It sounds like we've both been granted some free time. Any idea what to do with it? Izuku froze for a moment as he stared at her words. Holy crap, he grabbed his pillow and screamed into it. He put it aside, revealing his distressed face. I totally forgot, I said I'd pick a spot for us to meet today. I got nothing. It's not like I go out with friends often. God, my first day being somebody's boyfriend and I'm already failing. She's gonna be so disappointed. The boy racked his brain to think of a place he could take Momo. He considered his room for a second, but wrote it off immediately. It was basically an all-might museum. He didn't need to be that expressive. Although, he did need to get around to cleaning some of that out. 1. Letting his eyes bounce everywhere for an idea, he looked down at his tray of dirty dishes. A restaurant felt a little too much like a date. He looked at his almost gone iced tea. He got an idea. Midoriya. How about a tea cafe, say, tea this afternoon? 4. He was inwardly praying for this impromptu idea to work. Yaoyorozu. That sounds lovely. I'd very much enjoy a cup of tea with you, Midoriya. 1. Izuku laid back in his bed and clutched his rapidly beating heart. Oh, thank goodness. It felt like my heart was about to explode. Okay, keep the ball rolling. Midoriya. How does 2:30 p.m. sound? Yaoyorozu. Perfect. Would you like me to come pick you up? Midoriya. Oh, you don't have to worry about that. It's a short walk away for me. Yaoyorozu. Okay then, looking forward to it. Midoriya. Why yup, see you soon. With that, Midoriya put his phone down and stared at his shaky hands. I can't believe I just had a whole conversation with a girl. Sure, it was texting, but that counts, right? After washing the dishes, brushing his teeth and taking a shower, Izuku found himself with just under 4 hours to prepare for his date with Momo. Good thing, too, he needs it. His mother had left for work so he's in charge of getting himself ready. Okay, it's not like a fancy dinner date at a restaurant, just a casual meet-up. I should wear something casual, but not like lazy Sunday casual. Sadly, my t-shirt won't work. After looking around for a while, Deku had put together an appropriate outfit for himself. Deku looked at himself in the mirror as he finished getting dressed. On the outside, he looked like he had it all together. On the inside, he was all over the damn place. No matter how you look at it, I'm going out with a girl. And my mom doesn't even know about it. What kind of stuff does she like? What if my rambling habit kicks in, and she thinks I'm creepy? I've never even hung out with a girl before. And she seems so collected and focused. She's probably not nervous at all. Yaoyorozu Mansion. Deep breaths. Momo, deep breaths. Sitting in front of her vanity, the young heiress was practicing breathing exercises to try to get her nerves under control. Eventually, she got lightheaded and groaned to herself. It's just to learn more about each other, like he wanted. Slow and steady. Besides, he's not the first boy you've talked to. 2. Looking herself over in front of her full-length mirror, she sighed to herself. I suppose this will do. Her thoughts then turned back to what her mother said about him not cashing the check she gave him. Did he think it was out of pity? He's seen the difference between her lifestyle and his, so he could have taken it as her rubbing her wealth in his face. Even so, it's not like she can just take the check back. 1. Why must this be so complicated? Momo groaned again. Overthinking will just stress me out. I need to focus on making a much better impression this time around. Later. The time had come. Izuku was standing at a table outside the entrance of their meet-up tea cafe. The boy had sweat running down his forehead, and no, it was not due to the afternoon heatwave. Not entirely. He was about to have the closest thing to a date with the closest thing to an angel. Should I order for us? That way we can start enjoying this place sooner. But isn't it rude to just assume what she wants instead of asking? Do I smell good? I took a 10-minute shower and sprayed deodorant for this. Was that excessive? What about my? Izuku didn't know it, but he was mumbling every insecurity he had right then and there. Before he could scare any customers away with a full-on mumbling spree, a very expensive-looking Lamborghini rolled up, with a very expensive-looking silver-gray paint job. Izuku did a double take at the vehicle, and had to stop himself from drooling when he saw the very expensive-looking young lady step out of the backseat. Hello Midoriya. She greeted nervously. Izuku was still reeling from the sight of the beauty in front of him. Oh wow. Unfortunately, that was out loud, and he quickly collected himself after seeing Momo blush. Hiya yaoyorozi. That outfit looks great on you. He stuttered with a mad blush. Oh, thank you. Why you look nice as well. Ahem. Shall we sit? Acting on one of the dating tips he learned online, Izuku pulled the chair for Momo to sit. She smiled, so that was a good move. Once he sat down, they began suffocating in tortuous awkward silence. Their eyes were going everywhere except for their partner. Someone had to start a conversation, anyone. 1. Good afternoon. Ready to order. Thankfully, the waiter showed up. I'll have a raspberry iced tea and vanilla scones. Izuku ordered. And you, miss? I'd like the same, but with strawberry and vanilla ice cream filled mochi. Momo ordered. Coming right up. Their waiter left the two alone again to suffer in silence. Was the walk okay? Momo piped up. You walked here from home, right? How was it? It was a good walk. I hardly ran into anyone. Which is good. Let me get my tea thoughts in order. That's good. Izuku decided to talk about how she got here. So, no limo this time. Momo looked back at the Lambo she was driven in. Oh, yes, I didn't want to attract much attention to us. Izuku was slightly surprised. This is subtle for her. If I didn't know any better, I'd say she's doing this on purpose. 1. Do you do this often? Momo asked. Pardon? Izuku asked. Coming to this cafe. It's a nice place to visit with friends. Friends. Izuku looked down as he answered. And no, never really had a reason to come often. I'm not the most sociable person. Haha. His laugh was an attempt to mask his sadness. Momo realized her mistake, and kicked herself for it. She inadvertently just reminded him of his friendless status. Do you do stuff like this with your friends? Izuku asked. Yes, but not often. It's actually rare that we enjoy calm outings like this. It was her turn to look down. Much of our time is spent shopping and sightseeing in my family's cars. It's fun, but we don't often do things I like. They're always busy. Izuku looked into her eyes for possibly the first time that day. There was a glimmer of sadness in those shimmering orbs as she talked about her friends. They only shop and ride in her cars. Sounds like they're using her. But who am I to judge? I haven't had a friend since kindergarten. Still though. But I still appreciate them. Momo continued. They keep me company in school, and take me out for fun activities. Izuku still had his doubts, but decided to hold his tongue. But, what do you enjoy? He asked her. Well, reading, playing piano, group study sessions and tea. Izuku had a strong desire to ask how often she did any of those things with her friends if ever, but held himself back. What kind of tea do you like? He asked. It's difficult to just name one. There are so many different kinds with different effects on the body. Ginger tea for nausea, lemon balm for stress, chamomile for insomnia. I've always been fascinated by how a simple drink can cure so many problems. Izuku smiled as she continued to gush over different types of tea and their uses. It was honestly pretty cute how energetic she was getting. 3. Eventually, Momo realized she was going on a spree and blushed. I'm sorry, I got a little carried away. She looked away bashfully. No, it's okay. Izuku put his hands in front of him. I think it's cute how excited you get. It came out under his breath, but Momo caught it. Her blush intensified as she stared at Izuku, whose own blush intensified as well. Oh God, why can't I shut my mouth? 1. Sorry for the wait. The waiter finally returned with their drinks and snacks. They each took large gulps of iced raspberry tea to cool the heat in their cheeks. "So, Midoriya, what do you enjoy doing?" Momo asked. Izuku was a little skeptical about letting her see his nerdy quirk-obsessed side, but after listening to her go on about what she liked, it was only fair that he do the same. I don't really have a lot of hobbies. I'm into H heroes and Q quirks. When I see a good quirk, I can't help but want to analyze it. He paused to take a bite out of his scone. Momo could have deduced that after reading his notebook, which was filled with pages of heroes' quirks, their strengths and weaknesses and possible applications. One of my favorite pros is All Might, but I'm particularly fond of heroes with tough quirks. Momo looked up at him with eyes that said, "Go on, please." Guys like Edgeshot and Best Jeanist. Their powers only appear easy, but it took them a lot of work and sweat to master them. They're not the flashiest quirks, but they're really good at getting the job done. It's like, they're powerful, but even they struggle at times. He likes difficult quirks. Momo thought with rose-red cheeks. Midoriya. He looked at her with a small hum. "Would you like to know what my quirk is?" Izuku's eyes widened at the question. She asked as if she was hoping he'd say yes. I'd like that." He stuttered again. Momo sharply inhaled and began explaining her quirk. Well, my quirk is called creation. I can create any non-living thing from my body. To create an object, I need to know the molecular structure of the object, and it appears on the surface of my skin. She demonstrated by creating a tiny Russian nesting doll in her palm and sliding it over to him. She looked down at her food with a blush. I know, it's not the most impressive power or. It's amazing. Izuku suddenly shouted, making her jump slightly. Being able to create any inanimate object, that's incredibly versatile. But you have to memorize all kinds of formulas and molecular structures. Even simple objects like this are difficult, and you make it look so easy. Yaoyorozu, you have an awesome power. You could practically do anything you set your mind to. Momo was taken aback by all the praise and doting. She thought he would be impressed, but this is on a different level. He then put down the doll and started swiping his finger across his palm as if he was writing in a notebook. Picturing the molecular structure of any object requires focus, so unless the object is simple or you have plenty of practice, it takes time to create. And if it comes off the surface of exposed skin, large objects would require you to dress pretty light. But you can't make something out of nothing. What's the fuel? Something the body can spare. Something that can be replenished. Fat cells. A quirk that turns fat cells into different molecules entirely. But if that's your fuel source, then I imagine you eat more than the average person. But still, you maintain an excellent figure, it's all so impressive. Momo had a wide and wobbly smile as Izuku continued to ramble on about her quirk. She was genuinely impressed with how much he could figure out with such little information. Such a sharp mind. 1. Izuku finally stopped talking and covered his tomato face with his arms. Sorry, I didn't mean to get all weird, he said softly. It's not weird, everyone has their passions. You didn't call me weird for being so obsessed with tea. Momo smiled at him genuinely with Izuku feeling very at peace, as he would describe it. Before the two of them knew it, their drinks and plates were empty, and it was time to bid each other farewell. Holy whoa, we actually spent a whole hour here. Izuku gasped at his phone. Really, it felt so much shorter. Momo said, just as surprised. Izuku walked her to her Lamborghini, where her driver was patiently waiting. He wasn't just sitting there the whole time, at some points, he went to look at local stores. Izuku, feeling especially bold, opened his mouth and said, it was really nice, spending time with you today. Momo looked at him with wide eyes and a smile. I agree completely, shall we do it again sometime? Izuku was over the moon with how well this was going. I'd like that. Momo opened the door to her chariot, but before stepping in, she remembered Izuku pretending to write notes. One more thing, she got his attention before he could leave. When you were talking about my quirk, you pretended to write something. Izuku immediately flushed red and rubbed the back of his head. It's another habit of mine. When I don't have a notebook, I just substitute my hand. He was so embarrassed, He didn't notice Momo's forearm glowing pink and blue. Quote. Is it difficult to write in a burnt notebook? Momo asked in a hushed tone that only he could hear. Izuku grew less embarrassed and more disheartened by the memory of how his notebook was burned. I haven't tried. I'm worried the pages will fall away if I write too hard. Then, a new notebook was placed in front of him. In Momo's hands was a red cover notebook with Izuku's name on it. Literally, it's yours, to replace the last one. Deku did a double take. Yaoyorozu was giving him a gift. After an already wonderful day. And no, it's okay. Why you don't have to? I can easily buy a new one. Well, I just, For the first time, Momo was having trouble finding the right words. Hearing you go on about how great my quirk is, I just wanted to give you this. Please accept it. Izuku felt an arrow hit his heart. He was this close to sputtering madly before passing out. With shaky hands, he reached for his gift and held it. I promise I'll treasure it, and put it to good use, he said shakily. Momo could almost make out the tears of joy in his eyes. Thank you for the lovely time, Midoriya, she said as she climbed into her vehicle. Why you too, Yaoyorozu, he said back. She waved goodbye as her driver started the engine. Izuku waved as she drove off, and fell on the pavement on his back with the widest smile and tears of joy escaping him. Best day ever. 3. Meanwhile, worst fucking day ever. Katsuki grumbled to himself as he angrily stomped down the street. He had wasted an entire day at school doing barely anything productive. The only reason he showed up was because he was certain he'd see Deku, and pay him back for that punch to the nose. But to his surprise and great fury, the damn nerd was nowhere to be found. He could have spent the whole day with his crew, parading around town like the delinquents they are. 7. That damn bastard, I swear, the next time I see him. Oof. Watch where you're. He stopped himself when he realized who had bumped into him. The damn nerd, writing in a brand new notebook and a dopey grin on his face. You, he growled as he approached him. Deku, on the other hand, was completely unaware of the blonde's existence as he wrote down everything he learned about Yaoyorozu. Not just her quirk, everything they'd discussed during their date. Seeing him so happy was like poison to Katsuki. Where the hell have you been, Deku? Think I'll just forget about that cheap shot you gave me, huh? Izuku completely ignored and walked past him while writing in his notebook, mumbling to himself as he did. She said non-living might extend to gas and liquid, not just solid material. I'm talking, damn it, she likes tea. Cute when excited. Wait, did my thoughts slip out when I talked about her quirk? Oh god, I mentioned her diet. It's an unspoken rule not to do that. I know if it was with mom, I'd be dead. You're about to be dead. Izuku, with his mind still completely focused on Momo and how well his day went with her, finally spoke to Katsuki. Not now, Kachan. Before running off to his house. Bakugo just stood there, motionless. He couldn't comprehend what just happened. First the nerd punches him, then he just straight up ignores him. Like he's some nuisance. An annoying bug. No, he's the worthless bug asking to be smashed into the ground. What the hell is going on here? When did this? So, there's this girl. A brand new notebook. Katsuki grit his teeth and tightly squeezed his hand into a fist as smoke escaped from his palm. Whoever this bitch is, whatever she's up to. He glared at the path Deku walked down. I'm gonna get to the bottom of it. Damn it AAAAALLL. A livid Katsuki yelled from the shower. It took a whole night to finally digest what had happened the previous day. That insignificant, annoying bastard. How dare he ignore me? 1. Katsuki, quit yelling so early in the day. Mitsuki yelled from downstairs. Then it struck him. The old hag was in on it. Without a second thought, he marched down to the kitchen where Masaru was preparing breakfast, and Mitsuki was just eating a banana as an appetizer. Who the hell is Deku going out with? Tell me. What did I just say about yelling, huh? Mitsuki roared back. You heard me, hag. The nerd talked to you, so who's the bitch hanging around him? Mitsuki swiftly smacked her son down the head. That's none of yours or my damn business, brat. Hell, Izuku didn't even tell me. I had to hear about his first date from Inko. First date that little shit. Cut the bullshit, Katsuki. And put on some fucking clothes. The two of them screamed at each other for the entire morning. How their throats didn't suffer from it all is a mystery. Masaru just had earplugs stuffed in his ears. I can still hear them, but at least it's bearable. 6. Meanwhile, Manabu Private Academy, a school known for nurturing the best and the brightest. Here, we find Momo Yaoyorozu revising the notes from previous classes. Once that was out of the way, and lunch hour began, her mind turned to a different subject. Fishing her phone out of her pocket, she opened up her messages and typed. Yaoyorozu. Hello. Not a minute later, she got a reply. Midoriya. Hi, Yaoyorozu. How's your day so far? Midoriya. Oh, you know, kind of a drag, as usual this time of year. Can't wait for summer festivities. 1. Yaoyorozu. Yes, and I was wondering if you. Yaoyorozu. A feminine voice interrupted her. Momo was approached by 3 of her classmates. A pink-haired girl with green eyes and patches of silver scales on her skin, a blonde with blue eyes and her hair in a long ponytail, and a black-haired boy with his hair in upward spikes. 4. Aren't you excited for summer break? We gotta go shopping for new swimsuits. The pinkette said. Akarui, come on, what about season passes to the water park? Ooh, now that sounds fun, Jiga. Yaoyorozu put a smile on her face. It was never a bad thing to see her friends happy, but today it felt kind of forced. Since it was almost the end of the first term, summer vacation just around the corner. Of course spirits were high, and they obviously had Momo included in their plans. Ding. Asterisk. Midoriya. Everything okay on your end? 1. Yaoyorozu realized she had left Midoriya hanging for a whole minute. Since when does that feel like a long time? No matter. She hurriedly typed a response. Who are you texting, Yaoyorozu? The sole male of their friend group asked. Oh, just a friend, Awase. She answered the boy. That was half true. Technically, their little outing 2 days ago could be seen as a platonic meet-up. But a boy and a girl alone together does send a message. Plus, neither of them took a moment to even think about what the hell they were. 1. I was considering inviting him for our mall trip at the end of the week. He's very nice, so I think you'll like him. Momo suggested. Akarui and Jiga had amiable smiles to mask their greedy smirks. A friend of Yaoyorozu's we haven't met. Probably another naive Richie. Hell yeah, he can come. That sounds like a good idea. The more the merrier. Awase had a less than thrilled expression. It's a guy. I don't like how Momo's face lights up. How nice is this dude, exactly? Awase thought enviously. Sure, why not? He answered. Soon thereafter, the bell rang, and it was time to return to the main building. On her way back, Momo continued her conversation with Izuku. 2. Yaoyorozu. Sorry, my friends were talking to me. Quick question. Do you have any plans for this summer? Midoriya. And none. Why? 1. Yaoyorozu. My friends and I made plans. The day after the final bell, we'll all meet up at Kiyoshi Ward Shopping Mall. Would you like to come? Midoriya. Why, your friends will be there too. Yaoyorozu. Don't worry, I'm sure they'll like you. I don't know if they're the kind of friends I'd like. Izuku thought to himself. 1. Midoriya. Okay then, I'd love to come. Yaoyorozu. Wonderful, I'll give them the good news. Saturday. The first weekend of summer. For most, it's the beginning of a long period of fun in the sun. An occasion that deserves a strong kick-off. For one Izuku Midoriya, that means going to the mall to meet new people, hopefully make new friends and maybe further build his relationship with Momo. 2 dates in the same week. When did you become such a playboy? Inko exclaimed as Izuku was getting ready to leave. It's not a date, Mom. She's just introducing me to her friends, that's all. And the meetup we had wasn't a date either. I think. The ride on the train quite relaxing. Izuku's cart wasn't too full and there was air conditioning. It gave him enough peace to think. Yaoyorozu's friends, huh? Based on what she told me, they mainly do stuff with her if she brings her wallet. Not what I'd call a good relationship, but she doesn't see it that way. Maybe she thinks that's how friends act. Come to think of it, that's not too different from the suitors her parents refuse. Has Yaoyorozu ever even had a healthy relationship with someone outside of her family? Now I really wanna say something. No, don't jump to conclusions, Izuku. Let's just see how it goes. Pushing these thoughts to the back of his head, Izuku walked off the train and headed to the giant mall. Hiyashi Ward Shopping Mall, a bustling hub for tourists and locals to shop, engage in activities and socialize. Izuku walked to the entrance and saw a familiar head of black hair. Hi, he squeaked from behind the ravenet. Momo turned around and smiled at who it was. Midoriya, I'm so glad you made it. The three onlookers didn't share the same sentiment. What do you think? Akarui asked. Looks pretty average. Plain even. Yup. Not another Momo. Jiga sighed. So then why is she so happy to see him? Awase asked with a burning sensation in his chest. 4. Midoriya, meet my school friends. Jiga, she pointed to the scaly Pinkett, who smiled and waved, showing her fangs. A reptilian appearance. I wonder if she's cold-blooded. Izuku thought to himself. Akarui. The blonde flashed him a bright smile. Literally bright. Izuku was nearly blinded. A light quirk. Must be pretty useful in the dark. And Awase. The headband boy put up a forced smile. And nice to meet you all. Izuku blushed, nervous and hoping to make a good impression on these new faces. Well, shall we, everybody? Momo got the group moving. First things first, what did everyone need? Not much for me, Izuku said. Just bug spray and maybe some sun protection. Akarui was quick to go on about what was on her shopping list. I need a swimsuit, a new sundress, maybe some skin care products, new shoes. Jiga cut her off. Skin care for someone whose skin literally glows. Are you trying to get into a contest with a lighthouse? Hey, what's wrong with wanting to look my best? I need some new trunks. Let's start with the swim stuff. Awase said. So the group went to a store filled with swimwear, snorkels, pool noodles, etc. Izuku was looking for sunscreen and sandals. But an interesting conversation drew his attention. I'm not so sure. He heard Momo's voice. It sounded shaky and uncertain. Turning a corner, he saw Jiga pushing a red two-piece bikini into Momo's hands. It's not difficult to imagine where Izuku's thoughts went after seeing that. Izuku Midoriya, don't you dare. Do not think about Momo in that swimsuit at the beach. Do not think about how her flawless skin would shine under the tropical sun. Do not think about how perfectly the chest piece hugs her boo. God damn it, brain. 1. The whole time, Awase was picking trunks, and saw the same thing Izuku did. He just had a dopey grin until he noticed Izuku was visibly flustered. There's that burning again. Later, the group were walking around to look for the next store to visit or something else to do. Eventually, they came across a bookstore. Oh, there's a certain book I've been meaning to purchase. Momo's friends only groaned. Yaoyorozu, summer break just started. A book is the last thing I wanna see right now. 4. Momo looked down in slight shame. I'm sorry, I should have been more sensitive. I'll go. Izuku piped up. Everybody snapped their heads at him. I could use something to read to keep me busy. Momo's mood brightened up instantly. Let's go then, Midoriya. She was so giddy she grabbed him by the wrist and pulled him into the store. Jiga and Akarui were giggling about those two's nerdy side. Awase was biting his lip to suppress his jealous growls. 4. So what are you looking for? Izuku asked. A book about using weapons in combat. Izuku looked back at her with concerned eyes. After how helpless I was, I want to improve myself. If I'm going to be a hero, I need to first be able to take care of myself. Izuku's eyes widened. That ticks the dreams box on his list of getting to know her. After getting his own book, he stood next to her. I know you'll make a top-tier hero. You've got incredible potential, more than anyone else. With your hard work and determination, I know you can do it. He gave her the kind of smile that left no room for doubt. Yaoyorozu looked at him, feeling like a bubbly mess inside. Somehow, Midoriya always knew what to say. The kind words from her savior brought tears to her eyes. Izuku realized she was sniffling and covering her mouth. At first, he thought he did something wrong, but her next words negated those thoughts. Thank you. After taking a moment to calm down, they went to the counter. Which book are you getting? Momo asked. Izuku pulled out a book about martial arts. Why you're not the only one who feels inadequate. The two of them felt the heat rising to their cheeks and placed their books on the counter. As soon as the clerk gave them the green light, they both speed walked out of there. Those are some thick books, Jiga commented. How much did they cost? Izuku suddenly turned pale. He just realized that he left the store without paying. But then, why did the clerk let him leave? Not much, just 8,000 yen each. Momo answered. Izuku paled even further. Momo just paid for his book. Why Yaoyorozu, you didn't have to do that. Izuku protested. It's alright, Midoriya. You told me it was so you could better yourself. This was the least I could do. Izuku was still skeptical of the gift. Jiga and Akarui couldn't care less, but Awase was seething. Later, the group was traversing the mall, looking for things they either needed or wanted. Guess which came up more often. Eventually, the group reached an impasse. Momo saw a poster for a live ice skating show from 1300 to 1400, and Jiga and Akarui saw a Gucci store next door to a Chanel store. Momo knew her friends wouldn't want to accompany her to such a show, much to her dismay, but she wouldn't enjoy it nearly as much alone. I'll go with you. Yaoyorozu. Awase jumped at the chance to spend time with Momo. Why don't we split up and meet back here in an hour? Izuku suggested. A reasonable compromise, but Izuku hadn't decided whose side he would take, or if he'd go off on his own. Midoriya, have you ever seen ice skating before? Momo asked. The boy ruffled his hair. Oh, no I haven't. Her next question made his heart leap, and Awase's heart burn. Would you like to come with us? Izuku smiled wobbly. Sure? So the three of them went to the ticket stand, Momo completely unaware of the anger brewing to her left. Awase was glaring daggers at the greenette, who didn't notice his gaze, but felt like someone was pissed at him. Known Kachan for 10 years gave him a sixth sense for it. 7 Momo ordered 3 tickets, but before she could pay. Wait, are you paying for all of us? That's too much? Izuku protested. Relax, Midoriya. You think she can't afford it? Awase spat with venom, making Izuku shrink a little. It's just, I feel like you're giving too much. Momo smiled. You needn't worry, Midoriya. I just want to make sure you enjoy yourself. Izuku felt his heart squeeze with how pure she was. Well, if you're sure. The tickets were handed to the group as they made their way to the cool seating area, I'm sure. They took their seats with Izuku on Momo's left, and Awase on Momo's right. The show began with the lights dimming and spotlights shining onto the frozen pool. First, it was a duo of ice skaters, elegantly gliding across the ice. Their movements captivated and left them gasping in awe. Izuku and Momo were on the edge of their seats enjoying the performance. To Izuku, it was a lovely memory to try something new with someone he enjoyed being with. For Momo, it was a joy finally having a companion for what she wanted. For Awase, it was a good nap. 1 hour later. That was incredible, Izuku exclaimed. Those movements were so fluid, and they make it look so easy. Momo giggled at his enthusiasm. Did you see the way they spun? I almost got dizzy just watching them. Awase was trailing behind the two, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. Sadly, what he saw made him wish he stayed asleep. Izuku and Momo blushing and gushing at each other like nobody was around. As much as he wanted to break it up, it would paint him as the selfish jerk he is. There you guys are. Jiga called out to them. She and Akarui were walking back to them with huge bags. They must really get a good workout from all the shopping. Izuku cringed. Here you go. Akarui handed Momo a black card with gold writing. I swear, if that was her credit card. Izuku thought to himself. Before he could say something, he heard stomachs growling. Who wants lunch? The usual place. Akarui suggested. At first, Izuku just thought they were going to the food court, but they took him somewhere completely different. A high-class restaurant in the mall. La Nourriture des Riches restaurant. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Izuku thought as he entered with the group. The carpets were royal red with dim ceiling lights and candle-lit tables. Not to mention the pianist providing the perfect relaxing melody. Just stepping foot in there made Izuku feel poor. Unsurprisingly, Momo was unfazed by it all, having grown up in similar standards. I kinda feel out of place here. Izuku voiced his insecurities. Then leave. Nobody's stopping you. Awase thought. Oh, you'll get used to it. Jiga said to him. When the waiter brought them their menus, Izuku nearly had a heart attack. The prices were ludicrous. What, did they serve the food on golden plates? The rest of them placed their orders without hesitation. Momo had the salmon, 22,300 yen. Awase had steak and potato skin, 18,000 yen. Akarui had mapo tofu, 18,500 yen. And Jiga had gourmet ramen, 19,000 yen. Izuku ordered something relatively cheap and delicious. A bowl of katsudon, 12,000 yen. His wallet is going to be hurting later. When their respective orders arrived, they began chatting again. So, who's got plans for vacation? I've always wanted to try snorkeling, or maybe swimming with dolphins. Jiga began. Sadly, I won't have much free time, Momo began. I'm taking up weaponry lessons to be able to defend myself. Izuku looked at her with kind eyes. That's good, you never know what kind of creeps are lurking. Can't you just hire a few bodyguards? Akarui asked. Not if I want to be able to stand on my own 2 feet. Izuku smiled at her. I'm doing something similar. Picking up martial arts to be able to defend myself. Momo smiled back. Great minds think alike, as they say. It's better I start now so UA isn't disappointed. Izuku nearly choked on his food. You're going to UA? The top hero school in the country, he shouted out of shock. We're going to UA. Awase was quick to add. I'm taking the standard test, but Yaoyorozu has a practically guaranteed seat since her parents are big donors. The heiress looked slightly disheartened by the boy's words. I've been wanting to ask, what's your quirk? My quirk is weld. I can fuse things together at a molecular level. He demonstrated by fusing a fork to a napkin. Izuku tried tugging it, and it was like glue. Whoa, that's a pretty impressive power. It'd come in pretty handy for capturing foes, or climbing walls. Awase felt a small twinge of kindness welling up for the greenette. Thanks. Hey, are you interested in going UA too? One Izuku's and Momo's moods took a sharp dive. Deku closed his eyes and put up a small smile. No, I don't think I'd be fit for such a school. He chuckled sadly, but it just broke Momo's heart. Why not, what's your quirk? Jiga asked. Izuku was tempted to lie or dodge the question, but he knew it wouldn't end well if he did. So, he just had to come out and say it. I'm quirkless. He received no mocking remarks or insults, only pity. It wasn't the best feeling, but it certainly beat the cruelty he received from Aldera. Still though, he could feel something he built with Momo's friends had taken a small blow. Hopefully, it was just a baseless assumption. I feel kinda bad for him, but at least I don't have to worry about him now. I mean, there's no way Momo would go for a quirkless dude. Awase thought. 3. I don't wanna hold it against him, but he's even duller than I thought. Jiga thought. No wonder he's learning to fight, he has no power to help him out. Akarui thought. Once they finished their meal, it was time to pay the check. I'll cover my own food. Izuku said first. Midoriya, you don't have to, I can easily cover a whole feast. Momo interjected. No, Yaoyorozu, he spoke with a surprisingly stern tone. You already paid for my book and ice skating ticket. I'm honestly starting to feel bad for taking from you so much. Momo was honestly touched. This was the first time anyone ever said no to her paying. Her friends didn't like his selfless attitude since it made them look bad. It's okay, I probably spent the least amount today, so I've still got money saved up. I can take care of it. Please. After seeing his pleading eyes and hearing that voice, there was no way Momo could refuse his request. It was definitely a big bite out of Izuku's savings, but it was fine. After lunch, it seemed like a good time to call it a day. The group of 5 were heading to the exit, when Midoriya stopped and looked at something that grabbed his attention. Momo was the only one who noticed him freeze and stared in the same direction as him. In the window of a furniture shop, they saw a large wooden piano. Hey Yaoyorozu, didn't you say you knew how to play the piano? Momo blushed, slightly surprised Midoriya had remembered that little detail about her. She then realized what he was thinking. Well, I suppose I could play. It's not very crowded and, Izuku stopped her with a fierce blush on his cheeks. N not H here. I mean, what I am meant was, I would definitely be H honored if you'd P play for me, B but I didn't mean right here. A fierce blush then took Yaoyorozu. Oh, my mistake. I should have known that's what you meant. Izuku covered his face partially with his arms. Why, you're good. I probably should have explained more detail. Sorry about that. The two of them just stood in awkward silence, before speed walking to the exit. Everyone else had left, and it just the two of them, save for some stragglers packing up their things. They both pulled out their phones for their own reasons. For Momo, it was to call her driver. For Deku, it was to check the time. 2:40 p.m. Man, it's gonna take a bit for the next train to get here, he thought to himself. How long? Izuku snapped his head to the Ravenet beside him. How long until your train gets here? He thought to himself out loud again. The embarrassment gripped him yet again as he stuttered out an answer. 20 minutes. Momo's driver would arrive in 5, which is about how long it took her to muster up the courage to ask. Would you, like a ride home? Izuku was surprised at her offer. Oh, you don't have to worry about me, 15 more minutes isn't that bad. Why yes, but the subway can be dangerous even in broad daylight. I'd feel more at ease if I knew you made it home safe. Izuku's eyes widened as his heart fluttered. She truly cares for him. Taking a deep breath and swallowing thickly, he looks to the heiress. Thank you, I appreciate it. He gave her that smile that always sends butterflies to her stomach. The ride back to Musudafu was a fairly long trip, almost 30 minutes. In that time, Midoriya and Yaoyorozu were sitting together in sheer awkwardness. What have I done? Instead of making Midoriya feel safe and comfortable, we're both suffocating in this thick atmosphere. Perhaps he would have preferred the train. I shouldn't have been so pushy. So, you're friends. Izuku started, snapping Momo out of her thoughts. They were nice, and today was fun. Momo could feel the coming. But, I don't wanna judge, they seemed kind of self-absorbed. I'm not saying they're bad people or anything. They're not, Midoriya, I understand what you mean. Momo interjected with her eyes shadowed. When I told them about you, they seemed excited to meet you, and while you lived up to every great thing said, they seemed disappointed. Like they wanted more. And, while we do things I like, you're the only one who shared my enthusiasm. Perhaps, it's just more enjoyable with just the two of us. Momo had scarlet cheeks while saying that. Izuku went full tomato. The prettiest girl he'd ever laid eyes on just said he's more enjoyable to hang out with than her own friends. Why yeah, I agree. Musudafu. The car ride wasn't so long after all, and Deku was dropped off just outside his apartment building. Thank you for the ride. Izuku bowed. Of course, thank you for another great day. Izuku turned to the entrance, until Momo called out to him again. Midoriya. Izuku looked back at her. I'll make sure to practice my piano skills whenever you want to hear. Izuku blushed heavily at the reminder of what he said to her. He simply waved goodbye and entered the building. That was certainly a day, leaving Momo with a lot to think about. That night, Yaoyorozu was sitting on her bed in her pale rose nightgown, brushing her hair as she thought to herself. She couldn't help but compare the differences between her friends and Midoriya. While they usually took her out for activities, they didn't really have any meaningful conversations. Izuku made sure to put effort into getting to know her and seemed interested in her as a person. When she wanted to do something, he opted to join her, and made it all the more special for it. With her friends, Momo felt like she was just dragging them along more often than not. And finally, the money. Obviously, her Izuku and her friends are well aware of her family's fortune, but Izuku doesn't take advantage of that. He doesn't even cash in a check that was given to him. What's more, he asked Momo to stop spending money on him because he was feeling guilty. Her friends never shared that guilt, they were always happy to take from her. 3. With all that in mind, the heiress was having a difficult time coming to terms with what her friends see her as. She pulled out her phone and scrolled to a number she'd become familiar with. It's been 2 weeks since Midoriya got his new martial arts book. The boy was currently at Dagoba Beach, practicing his melee attacks on a training dummy he made out of torn cushions and car seats. Practicing fighting moves wasn't ideal in his little apartment, so he came here to make sure he was not interrupted. 1. Before starting the actual training, Izuku decided to clean up part of the beach as a way of earning to use it as his personal training ground. Of course, he wasn't arrogant enough to claim that he owned the place. He spent 10 days clearing an area to practice his moves, and a pathway to run along the sand. When he finished beating the stuffing out of his dead punching bag, he took a swim in the water. Despite the mountains of garbage, it was an excellent place for him to train in peace. Some days, he found the energy to clean up the place a little after his workouts. After another day of intense training, Deku picked up his duffel bag and walked home feeling a sense of accomplishment and a pinch of pride. VVVV. He fished his phone out of his pocket and saw it was a new message from Momo. Yes, they're on first name basis now. Momo. Hello Izuku, are you busy? Izuku. No, I just got through a workout. What's up, Momo? Momo. If you can make time tomorrow, would you please come to my home? I'd like to propose a thought that recently came to me. Izuku froze at the word, propose. Somehow, he had completely forgotten about Momo's wish to marry him. He was just having so much fun getting to know her and being in a relationship, that marriage was tucked away to the back of his mind. That's not to say he doesn't want to marry her, just that he's enjoying living in the moment. Izuku. Sure, no problem. See you tomorrow, Momo. Lovely, I'm sure what I have to say will benefit you quite nicely as well. There's that business talk again. He was really starting to feel nervous, like it was the proposal all over again. They had gotten close quite quickly, but still, they haven't even officially agreed to be each other's partner. These thoughts were bouncing in his head, taking up most of his attention. So he didn't even notice that he bumped into someone until it was too late. Hey, watch where you're well, look who it is. Much to Deku's dismay, he bumped into Katsuki's friends. One with long dirt blonde hair, and the other with short black hair. You know, you got some major balls walking around so casually. He must have a death wish or something. 1. Out of fearful instinct, Izuku took a step back. Hey guys. Long time, no see, haha. The two bullies stepped forward and cornered the green-haired teen. The black-haired one noticed something poking out of the corner of his duffel bag. Got a new diary, huh? Deku's eyes followed his, and they landed on the notebook Momo made for him. His favorite notebook. Before he could say anything, the dirt blonde used his long fingers quirk to snatch it right out of his bag. Hey, give that back. He reached for his prized possession, but was held back the black-haired one. The long fingers extra flipped through the pages until he landed on something that made him burst out laughing. Peef ha 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 ha, holy shit, Katsuki said you were simping, but this is better than I thought. Don't look at that, Izuku yelled with a beet red face. Dude, let me see, the extra holding Izuku back said. Fingers threw the notebook to him, while he shoved Deku to the ground. Bwahahaha, you fucking creep, this is pathetic. What they were looking at was a hand-drawn portrait of Momo from head to toe with scribbles of what he learned and liked about her. Yes, he did still analyze her quirk and others, but he put the most effort into her page. Or pages. How long were you stalking her to get all this info, you creep? The two of them laughed hysterically at the humiliated nerd. One of them took out his phone and tried to snap a photo. I bet you don't mind if we post about how you even take notes on girls. That was the last straw. 1. Without thinking, Izuku lunged for his red notebook and slapped the phone out of the bully's hand. It landed on top of a nearby garbage can, but the screen was cracked. The two bullies were now seething with rage as they surrounded him, and one of them pulled his fist back. Izuku caught the fist, rotated himself so that his back was facing the assailant, and used the momentum to throw the bully into his companion. The two of them crashed into the garbage can as filth and grime covered them. Izuku's first instinct from there was to run the hell away while he still had the adrenaline. Izuku's bullies remained on the ground, hurting and completely caught off guard by what just happened. Did he? The blonde started. I think he did. The black-haired one answered. It's a good thing Katsuki's not here. Let's just leave this part out when we explain what happened. 1. Meanwhile, once again, Izuku's legs were a blur as he sprinted towards his apartment. Reaching the front door, he swung it open and ran for his room before shutting his door with a slam. He threw his bag to the floor, plopped on his bed, and held his notebook close to his chest while breathing heavily, trying to calm down and assess what just happened. He fought back. The training is paying off already. But he hurt them. But it was self-defense, and they started it. Then again, he bumped into them, so technically he started it. He stood up for himself. Kachan's gonna be so mad. But it felt good to finally shove them off. Crunches. Izuku suddenly shouted to no one. That's what I need. A set of crunches to get this adrenaline out of me. Taking his place on the wooden floor of his bedroom, Izuku began a set of crunches. His room had changed substantially. What was once an All Might museum now looked like any hero-admiring teenager's room. Of course, there was still All Might merch and posters, but not nearly as much as it used to be. With less than half of all that cleared out, he had posters of Edgeshot and Gunhead, with a few dumbbells and a grip trainer, since he's now picked up physical exercise and combat training. After sweating out the rest of his stress, he rested on his bed with his hand resting against his forehead. After how well things have been going for him this summer, he was still racked with insecurities and self-doubt. Katsuki's cronies would likely tell him what happened, and he highly doubted he could take 3-on-1. Their words kept coming back. The taunts and insults. He was somewhat glad his mother was working. Apparently, there were a lot of people with heatstroke and sun poisoning. Standing up, he grabbed his favorite notebook and walked to the railing outside his front door. I'm not the same Deku anymore, he muttered to himself. Try as he might, he couldn't take any pride in what he did. It was just the high of the moment, and they were caught by surprise. In a real fight, he'd probably still lose. As unhealthy as these thoughts are, it's motivation for him to train harder. The next day, Momo was waiting in her home's training room. It was a room with wooden flooring, decorated with hand-to-hand weapons like bow staffs, wooden swords and long-staffed short-blade swords. This room was recently set aside for her to focus on training her body and quirk. The former was with private tutors who were off duty today. Today was to be her first sparring match with Izuku. While he wasn't experienced with weapons, he knew hand-to-hand combat which would make up for it. Today, they would be each other's instructor as well as sparring partner. Ding dong. Her attention was drawn to the sound of her doorbell being rung. He's here, she thought with glee as he was brought to her training room where the heiress bowed to greet him. It would have been a little strange to Izuku why she did that if he didn't see what she was wearing. Momo was barefoot and wearing a snow-white gi with a red belt around her waist. The only downside, or upside, is that the top was wide open due to the warm weather, giving him a fine view of her cleavage. Welcome Izuku, I'm glad you could come, she said with infectious enthusiasm. Thank you for having me, Momo. So, I guess you called me over for training. He blushed, focusing on maintaining eye contact. Yes, take off your shoes and follow me. Obeying her orders, Izuku followed Momo into her in-house dojo, secretly fanboying over everything he saw. Momo explained the purpose of this meet-up. Izuku grew enthusiastic and was eager to learn how to use weapons, and Momo was excited to learn hand-to-hand combat. Momo grabbed a pair of bow staffs and they got in position. They began clashing with their wooden weapons, Izuku proving to be an adaptive pupil, but of course, couldn't win against Momo's skill. She struck the back of his leg, making him kneel. She followed up with a strike to his chest, making him fall on his back. Momo planted her foot on his chest to keep him pinned and held the end of her staff to his chin. Surrender, she asked, knowing what his answer would be. Deku was a little distracted by how hot Momo looked while towering over him. Is this a secret fetish of his? He's taking too long to talk. He just nodded absent-mindedly. Momo offered her hand to help him up. Not bad, Izuku. For a beginner, you held your own quite well. Izuku blushed and rubbed the back of his head. Thanks. What do you want to do next? Momo put away the staffs and grabbed the bladed staffs. Izuku gulped, regretting his question. Their match went much like the last one. Every time Izuku thought he had the upper hand, Momo surprised him and had him back on defensive. She had him frozen in place with her blade 2 inches away from his neck. Again, Izuku found it pretty damn hot. You're getting better. Momo praised him while moving her weapon away from his neck. I hope so. You're so good at this, it's like I'm fighting a ninja. Momo had pink cheeks at the compliment. Gee, thank you, but I only have so much under my belt. Momo handed him a bottle of water, and they took a breather. Now, it was time for Deku's forte. They took their respective stances and began fighting. While Momo was competent, this time it was Izuku who had the upper hand. He grabbed her by the wrist, twisted her arm behind her back and slammed her onto the carpet. The next round was a little more interesting. Momo was getting overwhelmed by Deku's moves, which utilized his legs more than his arms. He drew her in with a delayed sweep to her feet. Momo easily dodged and went in for a punch, but Izuku caught her fist. The next thing she knew, his back was turned to her and she was lifted off the ground. Her body was flipped and smashed into the ground, but Deku wasn't done. He made sure she wouldn't get up by pinning her arms above her head. "Surrender?" he asked. This time, Momo was too flustered to answer immediately. His face was inches away from hers as his body towered over her. She couldn't move her arms to push him off, feeling trapped under him, apparently forgetting that she had legs. All she could do was nod as he lifted her up again. Very impressive, Izuku. Clearly, I need to improve. Momo said bashfully. Don't sell yourself short, you're picking this up pretty quickly. Their conversation was cut short by Momo's phone vibrating. Her face brightened up slightly. Who's that? Izuku asked. It's my parents. They're just messaging to check up on me. Momo answered. Oh, they're not here. I was kinda hoping I could say hello to them. Izuku said disappointed. Yes, they're on a business trip for the week. But I'll be sure to pass on your message. How has your mother been? Izuku rubbed the back of his neck. She's fine, pretty busy at the moment. I was actually on my own until you decided to invite me over. Momo felt a pang of sadness in her heart for the boy. They were both alone save for each other. Her moment of empathy was interrupted by a message her mother sent. Now she had red cheeks that caught Izuku's attention. Momo, is something wrong? And no, nothing at all. She squeaked out. I told my parents we were sparring, and Mother insists that we send her a picture. Now Izuku was all flushed. Come to think of it, isn't this something most couples do? No, calm down Izuku. It's for her parents, they're just checking up on her. That's all. 1. The two of them shuffled around awkwardly to get in the frame while giving each other a little distance. Izuku was on Momo's left while they both struggled to keep straight faces. When Momo snapped the picture, they immediately separated, taking deep breaths to calm the hell down. Momo's mother didn't immediately respond to the image, but Momo could almost hear her laughing and squealing. The two of them were enveloped in a vacuum of awkwardness. The two of them were inwardly praying for something to save them from this. Lady Momo, the meal you requested is ready, a butler said before leaving. That snapped them both out of the agonizing situation. Would you like to stay for lunch? Momo spoke up. Izuku looked at her, she seemed just as nervous as he was. That brought him the slightest bit of comfort, made him feel more welcome. Izuku waited by an outdoor patio as Momo joined him, with two servants behind her carrying 2 steaming bowls and a tray with 2 glasses and a pitcher. Izuku was taken aback by what he saw. Raspberry iced tea, that's what we had when were getting to know each other. And katsudon, my favorite dish. Momo misread the reason for Izuku's stupor, and panicked. Is there something wrong with the meal? I assumed you were fond of these choices. I'm so sorry, you remembered. Izuku stopped her panicked rambling with 2 words before continuing. There's nothing wrong, in fact, it's amazing. Izuku had bright eyes and a smile, his voice soft and touched. Momo calmed down when she realized how heartwarming this was to him. 1. Without another word, they dug in. Izuku made it apparent how much he adored his katsudon, filling Momo with happiness at how well her decision turned out. I can't believe you remembered what I like from back then, Izuku said. Momo blushed. Well, I haven't been very socially active as of late, so I wanted to make sure I was being a good hostess for you coming over. Izuku blushed at the thought that she put thought and effort into this whole thing. But something she said stuck out to him, so he decided to see where following this string would lead him. I'm in the same boat, but I thought you'd be with your friends. Momo's face soured just the tiniest amount. I've decided to distance myself from them for the time being. As I'm sure you've realized, I have training to focus on. Izuku was almost startled by the hint of venom in her voice. Whatever is going on in her friend group, it isn't pretty. Between that and my parents being out of town, it's been a lonely week. Yes, I have my servants, but even with other people around, it's still isolating. Izuku muttered, accidentally cutting her off. His voice was cold and distant and hurt. Izuku realized her eyes were on him and he flushed again. Sorry, just talking to myself. Just ignore me. Suffice to say, she didn't. Izuku, are you lonely as well? Her voice was firm but held worry. Izuku knew she wouldn't be satisfied without a truthful answer. I was never the most popular kid in school. In fact, ever since I was diagnosed as quirkless, I became a pariah. Momo felt a sharp pain at her heart. Of course, I still had my mom, my aunt and uncle, but ever since I was 4 years old, my social life has been non-existent, he admitted sadly. Momo was greatly saddened by what she just heard. She was aware of how many quirkless people were treated in this society, but this. To not have a single friend in 10 years. It sounds terrible, and she fears that there's a little more to it than he's letting on. She was afraid to press on for answers, afraid of driving him away, so for now she would have to bite her tongue. Although, there was one thing she couldn't ignore. He didn't mention his father. That thought was put on hold by a vibration coming from Izuku's pocket. Excusing himself, he pulled out his phone and flushed bright red. Speak of the devil, he groaned. Is something the matter? Momo asked. Remember my aunt and uncle I mentioned? Well, they're not really our relatives of mine, just really close family friends. And she keeps asking. Well, demanding I let her meet you. 1. Momo turned slightly red. Why your aunt wants to meet me? She asked. Sorry, but I do kinda owe her. She gave me some seriously helpful advice when I was still making my decision. Momo realized he was talking about the time she first proposed to him. Looking back on it now, she can imagine how stressful it must have been for him. She couldn't help but apologize for her past actions, but Izuku assured her it was okay. It was just what she had learned from her wealthy background, she couldn't be blamed for it. If it's okay with you, I'm sure we can arrange a time and place to meet. Momo said. Izuku looked at her with slight surprise, but agreed to someday introduce her to his Aunt Mitsuki and by extension Uncle Masaru. For now, he had to make his way back home. Izuku thanked her for the meal and left her estate, himself feeling a bit lighter and upbeat from the day's events. Momo, however, had some admittedly negative thoughts. Treated like a pariah for 10 years. Only having 3 adults he could really talk to. But, Izuku was the kindest, most selfless, most considerate person I've ever met. Is it possible that he was even bullied? Momo's heart tightened at the thought. She pulled out her phone and looked up the picture she and him took earlier for her mother. 6. Favorited. Ding. A tick mark appeared on Yaoyorozu's forehead when she realized who was messaging her. It came from her friend group chat. Jiga. Yaoyorozu, please tell us you're available for a mani-pedi. Somehow, Momo wasn't surprised it was for such a frivolous request. Yaoyorozu. Apologies, but I'm feeling quite fatigued from today's training. Any friend would understand and wish her the best in recovering. Akarui. Seriously, that's what you said last time. Any real friend, that is. 2. Awase. Are you sure you're actually training? 5. Momo quickly got offended by the implications of that question. Yaoyorozu. Excuse me, are you implying that I've been lying to you all about my training? Awase. No, not at all. I'm just saying that it'd be more effective if you had a good sparring partner. Maybe I could come over to your place sometime and we'll see what we've got. 1. Yaoyorozu. Pass. Awase got chills from that cold response. Yaoyorozu. I already have a partner, Midoriya. He and I were training rigorously earlier today. Awase. Midoriya was at your house. You've been training with him. Jiga. Okay, now I'm doubting that you've been training, and not just hanging out with Midoriya without us. Akarui. You got any proof? 1. Yaoyorozu couldn't believe her eyes. Her friends, the people she trusted, were straight up interrogating her. She did have proof. Although she was reluctant to share it, she did want to dispense with this conversation quickly. She sent them the photo. Izuku and Momo together, her in a GI, both of them in a dojo-like room, both sweating. Many elements of the picture suggested that the two of them worked up a sweat via exercise, and the timestamp confirmed it was in the early afternoon. Before she would have to put up with more accusations or empty apologies, Momo blocked their contacts. The whole thing leaving her feeling frustrated and dejected. She had never once given them a reason to distrust her, and whenever they wanted or needed her before, she never disappointed. But there had been many times that they failed to return the favor. 3. Momo scrolled through her phone's gallery, looking at all the pictures she'd taken with her friends since starting middle school, filled with mild disgust. Shopping malls, her mansion, her family's yacht, massage parlors, fancy restaurants, repeat. Never once did they have non-expensive outings. She scrolled down to a photo during her childhood, when she was learning how to play piano beside her parents. 1. Her mother and father. There were times that they'd talked to her about her relationships. From time to time, they talked with her about what a poor relationship entails, although most of those were on the subject of suitors. Although, she did remember having 1 or 2 talks about the people she surrounded herself with. She's not one to dismiss the words of her parents, but at the time, she felt like she was with the right people. But back then, she compared them to the sycophants vying for her hand in marriage. And, now that she's thinking about it, there isn't much difference between them. Whether she wanted to admit it or not, the reason those opportunists appeared better is because she liked that they didn't put formal clauses or make exchanges like she had been through so many times. The reality is she has very low standards for a good relationship. Except for him, Izuku Midoriya, patient, thoughtful, understanding, helpful, kind and so much more. Truthfully, she didn't believe she deserved to be getting as close to her as she has been. And, if she knows him, he feels the same way about her. That was the moment her mind was finally made up. I know what I'm going to do next. Surprisingly, deleting all those pictures didn't hurt nearly as bad Momo expected. It was certainly easier than telling her classmates she had decided to sever their unbalanced friendship. But at the same time, it didn't hurt. In fact, it felt liberating for the young heiress, as if she was a dove in a cage, and finally released. 1. Of course, they weren't exactly thrilled at losing their unlimited express card, but Momo no longer cared how they felt. However, this does beg the question, who will keep her company now? She had her loving parents, of course, but they were often consumed with their work and unable to spend as much quality with their daughter as they'd prefer. There was always the house staff, all of whom held a place in her heart, but they weren't hired to be her friends. And she sure as hell wasn't going to pay for friends. Those days are over, so that just leaves sweetheart. Momo was snapped out of her thoughts by her father calling her. Oh, why yes, father. Are you all right? Lately, you've seemed a bit distant, like your mind is elsewhere. Momo stiffened a little, as much as it pained her to admit, stepping away from her former friends left her feeling lonely and somewhat depressed. Her parents had only recently returned, and could still read her so easily. Well, I've realized some things about how my friends treat me, and Izuku, so I've decided to end it off with them. Sakusei was proud of his daughter. Walking away from a negative relationship is difficult, especially during her young teenage years, and clearly, she's suffering the after effects. Fret not, Momo, you were always worrying yourself if they were happy, but you didn't consider yourself. You made the right choice, and I'm so proud of you for it. Momo's mood brightened at that. 1. Still, she needed something to bring her self-esteem back up. Those selfish brats left a wound in her heart, and someone had to treat it. And he knew exactly who. I'd love to keep comforting you, but we still have much to prepare for. Sakusei said with mock tiredness. Prepare, father. Momo tilted her head in confusion. Have you forgotten about our annual summer solstice ball already? It's the highlight of the year. Momo's eyes blew wide open. She had completely forgotten about her favorite event. Every year, her family hosted a grand party for their friends, family and close associates to meet and mingle and have a great time. Good food, good music, ballroom dancing, entertainment, a superb fireworks display to end it all with a bang. Nothing beats it. She remembers last year, she and her friends. Oh, that's right. In recent days, she's been trying to shut out anything and everything that could bring her back to her old friends. Evidently, they're still keeping her from enjoying herself. I know you've decided to cut ties with your classmates, but surely there's someone who you'd like to make an appearance. Think about it. With that, Sakusei left his daughter to ponder his words and her current predicament. Needless to say, she only had one person to invite. 1. Midoriya household. Izuku and Inko were both in the living room, enjoying a nice, relaxing day watching TV together. Some long-awaited family time that was very much welcomed by the Midoriyas. It's been a while since we've had time to just relax. Izuku commented. Tell me about it, honey. I feel like we haven't gotten a moment's peace together, what with how demanding the hospital has been, and your girlfriend trying to marry you, it's been rather hectic. Izuku turned red at her mother's input. Mom. The Midoriya matriarch couldn't help but chuckle at the rise she got from her son. As soon as their show had ended, Izuku's phone vibrated. Let me guess. Inko began, already knowing who it was. Izuku checked the notification, and sighed with pink cheeks. Yup. Inko excused herself to check their mail while her son texted his not girlfriend. Momo. Good afternoon, Izuku. A moment of your time, please. She sounds so formal. She's nervous about something. Yup. Izuku knew her well enough that he could read her via her wording. 1. Izuku. Of course, whatever you need, Momo. Momo. Well, my parents are hosting a party at my residence, and if you're not too busy, I'd like you to come. I have something I wish to discuss with you. Izuku. AP party. Well, I'm available, but what is it that's bothering you? Momo. I may have neglected to tell you, but I've had distracting matters to attend to. You see, I've recently cut all ties with my friend group. It just wasn't working for me. And there it is. She's likely depressed from stepping away from them. Izuku felt somewhat relieved since they didn't come across as the best friends one could ask for. She could do so much better. Izuku. Oh, gosh, I'm sorry about that. Momo. It's okay, but I just didn't want to be alone. I realize I'm being selfish, and I apologize, but if you wouldn't mind being my companion, I would appreciate it immensely. Izuku. I wouldn't mind one bit. You're not being selfish, you're just in a bad place from your last friendship. You're one of the most generous people I know. Momo turned pink after reading his text. Momo. I look forward to seeing you. Izuku. Same here. With that, Izuku put away his phone and thought about what he just agreed to. A party at Momo's. Not like a couple friends gathering, a whole party. And she personally invited me. Should I get a tuxedo or something? Izuku went over to his mother to inform her of his dilemma. When he reached her, she was a statue, staring at a black and gold piece of paper. Izuku had an idea of what it was as he read it over Inko's shoulder. Greetings. You are cordially invited to attend the Yaoyorozu's summer solstice ball. We guarantee a night of enchantment to celebrate the festivities of the season with first-class catering, superb entertainment, and a magical evening under the stars, or in the halls of our illustrious mansion, with the guarantee of safety with numerous pro-heroes in attendance. 1. Izuku Midoriya, we look forward to your arrival. A fancy invitation to an undoubtedly fancy party, hosted by the Yaoyorozus, Momo's family, asking for his presence yet again. Just one day. The Midoriyas can't have just one day to relax. Formal wear. Izuku and Inko browsing a tuxedo rental store for Izuku to fill the formal wear requirement. Inko rushed him here after narrowly avoiding a heart attack when Izuku suggested wearing his dress shirt, t-shirt. And he almost had a heart attack when she said he couldn't wear his favorite red sneakers. 2. Okay, we've got your outfit. I'm already confident in your manners, so that just leaves the dance. Inko ticked the boxes on her checklist. Mom, I can't dance. With or without a partner, I don't know what to do with my body. Inko looked at him with a beaming smile. Don't worry, hun, I know just who can help you with that. 3. The Bakugos. 1. Izuku locked up in front of their door again. Why do I keep needing Auntie to help me out? He thought as he knocked on the door. This time, someone answered before he had to punch a nose. I don't see your girlfriend with you. Mitsuki immediately started, making Izuku sigh tiredly. We're not. Can I please come in? She opened the door wider for him to enter. Izuku explained his current dilemma to the Bakugo matriarch, who was eager to help. Not 2 months into a relationship, and you already want her to dance for you. Izuku sputtered wildly at Mitsuki's tease before she calmed him down. You say you don't know what to do with yourself. Easy then, let your partner decide. That was the complete opposite kind of advice she gave him last time. She's probably good at this kind of dancing, so it's best if you let the professionals show you the ropes. I guess I could teach you something basic. On your feet. Izuku rose to his feet. Mitsuki grabbed his hands and held his right hand while his left was planted on her hip, and her free hand rested on his shoulder. The sudden closeness and contact sent Izuku into a blush. Box dancing is a great beginner. Easy to remember, and you get close to your partner. Follow my steps. Right. Mitsuki led Izuku through a simple pattern, dancing in a small square in the living room. If Kachan ever finds out about this, I'm so dead. Mitsuki snapped her fingers to get his attention. Eyes on your partner. Keeping your eyes on them makes them feel special. Yes ma'am. 3. The night before the party. Yaoyorozu. Momo was sitting upon her windowsill cushions with her knees up to her chest. It was currently 10 p.m., and she needed to get her rest for the big night. But something was eating away at her, keeping her up. She looked up at the star-lit sky. How can I still be so dependent on people who don't even value me for me? Try as she might, her gold digger friends still haunted her, specifically that little interrogation when they painted her as untrustworthy. Does Izuku feel that way? I know that's a ridiculous, nonsensical question. So why is it keeping me up like this? Midoriya. Formal wear. Check. Dance practice. Check. Self-confidence. Work in progress. Man, this is the first party I've ever been invited to. And of all the kinds of parties, a high-class ball. The boy threw himself onto his bed and stared at the night sky. He remembered what happened the last time he was invited to the Yaoyorozu's home. I get the feeling something big is gonna go down. 7. The night, 7 p.m. Izuku once again found himself intimidated by the overwhelming richness of the Yaoyorozu residence, despite being invited once again. He clutched the invitation in his hand nervously as he approached the bouncer, but suddenly had a feeling of unease crawl up his back when he felt an arm wrap around his shoulder. 30 seconds earlier, Awase was standing outside the gate to Momo's home. He had no idea why he forced himself to come here. It's not like he was welcome anymore. How am I supposed to apologize and get with Momo if I can't even get past the front door? It should have been easy to stand out since I'm not a rich bastard, so what went wrong? His angry questioning was cut off by a head of curly green hair walking past him. Awase's eyes widened as he realized who it was. He bared his teeth as the answer to his earlier question revealed itself. Midoriya. Upon further inspection, he realized he was rather well dressed and holding a fancy envelope that was awfully familiar to him. Don't tell me, was that wimp invited by Momo? She let him in, but not me. Damn it, if it weren't for that quirkless bastard, I'd still be on Momo's good side. Wait, that's it. Present, I just gotta play nice, get this chump to let me in with him, and take back my girl. Awase schemed. Izuku was confused and uncomfortable to see Awase wrapping an arm around his shoulder in a friendly manner. Hey Awase, he asked. 2. Hey Midoriya, what's up pal? Those words were poison as they flew out of his mouth. I didn't expect to see you here, Izuku said as they walked up to the large four-armed bouncer. He stared down at the two boys from behind his sunglasses, making them both sweat. Name. Yosetsu Awase. The bouncer's eye twitched slightly. Leave. He coldly uttered. Izuku stuttered, shaking slightly. My name is, Izuku Midoriya, welcome to the party, he said with the slightest bit of kindness, causing both boys to be surprised. The young mistress has been waiting for you. 1. Wow, really? He asked in mild shock. Awase was seething with jealousy. He had been here before. Where was his invite from Momo? Great. Well, let's get. I suggest you take your hands off of Mr. Midoriya, Awase. The bouncer warned in his sub-zero tone. Awase quickly retracted his arm. 5B But, surely Yaoyorozu meant to invite me too. It must be some misunderstanding. Believe me, nobody in or around this house has uttered your name in quite some time. That totally didn't feel like a punch to the heart. But, I'm Midoriya's +1. Right buddy, you better say yes, you quirkless nerd. 2. Izuku looked uncertain with how to answer that. He and Awase only hung out once, because Momo invited him to tag along. Didn't Momo say she let him and their friends go? She probably doesn't want any of them here. I guess I'll have to. Is there a problem, gentlemen? A fourth voice asked. A mature, feminine voice. Standing at the entrance behind the bouncer with a glass of wine was Yaoyorozu, the esteemed co-hostess of this party and mother of Momo. Izuku and Awase momentarily forgot how to breathe under Ai's gaze. She was wearing a stunning red dress that accentuated her curves. 1. Mrs. Yaoyorozu. One of these young men was just about to leave. For some reason, Izuku's heart dropped alongside Awase's. He felt at least partly to blame for this drama, and worried he may have done something to dent his relationship with Momo's parents. Ah, Izuku, she gasped with elation. Awase nearly screamed at how excited she was to see Izuku, and that she had even referred to him with his first name. We've been wondering when you were going to show. Come, it's rude to keep a lady waiting. Izuku blushed heavily. Does she mean herself or her daughter? Yes ma'am, sorry. The bouncer moved aside to allow the young man access. 2. Wait, Mrs. Yaoyorozu, Awase called out. The gorgeous woman looked over shoulder, the welcoming glimmer in her eyes now absent. Ah, yes, Awase, she said with mild annoyance. I remember now, my daughter did mention you, along with a Jiga and an Akarui. For a brief moment, Awase's eyes lit up before, she said not allow any of you access. 1. With those cold words, Awase was left out in the warm night, all alone. Izuku was actually taken aback by how cold the Yaoyorozu matriarch could be. Izuku, are you coming? She asked, snapping him out of his stupor. Oh, yes ma'am. He hurriedly made his way to her side. As they walked, I noticed Izuku seemed rather fidgety. Something the matter? Well, it's just, you called me Izuku. I cocked an eyebrow. Is that a problem? No, why you can call me whatever you like. Jay just caught me off guard, that's all. I simply giggled. How kind of you. Tell me, how have you been enjoying your time with my daughter? Izuku was taken aback by the question, but answered nonetheless. I've really been enjoying it. Momo always makes my day brighter, even if it's just a text message. I beamed at the response. She brightens your days, huh? Wonderful. I can guarantee she feels the same for you. Whenever she thinks about you, there's this adorable glimmer in her eyes. And nowadays, she seems so active and driven, more than before. You've made quite the impact on her. Izuku blushed and rubbed the back of his head. Oh, why you're too kind. Momo's naturally amazing, so I'm sure she'd make just as much headway in any case. Ai's smile faltered a bit. However, we do have some concerns. Izuku looked up at the woman in concern. Momo is an exceptional child, there's no disputing that, however, she is still just a child. Her father and I don't often give her the attention she needs, and yet she's still growing into an outstanding young lady. Izuku spoke up. You're doing the best you can, and I'm sure Momo knows it too. You have a world-renowned company to run and countless people trying to partner or compete with you. You still love your daughter with all your heart and do anything and everything you can to make her happy. You're already doing plenty for her. I looked at the young man with stunned eyes. She never expected him to be so understanding. She was once again reminded why he's such a precious gem. Thank you, sweetheart, but as much as I'd love to hear more of your flattery, it doesn't change the fact that she often feels alone. Naturally, she deeply values those who willingly keep her company. But after what happened with her last group of friends, I'm sorry. I stopped when Izuku, for reasons unknown, began apologizing. Her relationship with her friends only started crumbling when I came along. Not that I blame them, It's not always easy opening up to something or someone new. If Momo's friends are giving her a hard time and it's my fault. I wish she'd met you sooner. This time, Izuku was interrupted. You've spent time with the kids my daughter once called friends. Was there anything about them that made you feel liked or welcome? Izuku pondered the question, but didn't have an immediate answer. I understand that leaving a long-lasting relationship with people you believed enjoyed your company was difficult, but an important learning experience for her. I hate that she's in pain over them, but I'm also proud of her. And grateful to you. Izuku was beginning to feel overwhelmed with this conversation. Since that little fiasco at the entrance, he's been rather tense. Thanks to you, she's starting to see how detrimental that kind of relationship was, and how a healthy relationship should be. She deserves better, like her hero. Izuku blushed while clutching his chest. I sighed. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to kill the mood with such heavy conversation. Please, enjoy the party. After an extremely long walk, that almost felt intentional, the two of them made it to the grand hall. Before I could leave his side, Izuku had some parting words. Words that were music to her ears. I swear, I'll do everything I can to make Momo happy. No stutter, no hesitation, no room for question. His resolve was absolute. I faced him with a smile before leaving. I trust you'll take good care of my child. With those words, I left him to enjoy the night, feeling ever more confident in her daughter's happiness in the future. Amazing, incredible, stupendous. Those words were barely sufficient to describe what Izuku was seeing. The formally dressed boy was standing in the huge hall of the Yaoyorozu mansion. Local and exotic cuisine, and an upper-class band playing music. But the thing that had Izuku really impressed was the plethora of heroes either mingling with the guests or guarding their safety. Currently, the boy was pouring himself a glass of sparkling apple cider, and trying desperately to not freak out. Best Jeanist, Mount Lady, Kamui Woods, Burnin. I'm in a hall of greatness. Keep it together, Izuku. Keep it together. 1. While Izuku was shuffling around awkwardly, feeling completely out of place and looking for Momo, a certain hot-headed pro was looking at the boy with curious and angry eyes. Izuku wasn't completely aware of it, but he was under the gaze of Japan's number 2 hero, Endeavor. 1. Who is that boy? If he's a pro's child or the heir to some business tycoon, he wouldn't be wandering here by himself. And why would the Yaoyorozu lady usher him in herself? They certainly don't appear to be related, and this family only has one daughter. One thing is obvious, he's close with the Yaoyorozus, but how? For his sake, he better be not interfere with Shoto's marriage. 14. Izuku wasn't fully aware of Endeavor's glare, but he could feel a pair of eyes burning into the back of his neck. A feeling he was quite familiar with. I know I just got here, but I think I could use some air. Deku took his drink and walked outside to the grounds. He found that there was a small crowd of people who thought the same as him. Just as he was starting to get his nerves under control, he noticed someone on his own. A bi-colored teen about his age. Izuku thought he seemed sad and went to strike a conversation with him. Excuse me, are you all right? The boy looked at Midoriya with a cold gaze. Izuku felt himself freeze as he stared into his heterochromatic eyes. From up close, he could see his hair was a perfectly even red on the left and white on the right. His left side was especially intimidating with the burn scar on his face. Oh, it's you. He spoke. 1. Me? Izuku asked, feeling like he just upset someone after only knowing him for 3 seconds. You seem close with the family hosting this event. Izuku was starting to regret talking to this guy. Oh, I don't know about that. I'm just another guest here. I didn't ask. This guy's scarier than the bouncer. Despite his body trembling and screaming to escape this conversation, Izuku pressed on with the emo teen. So, what about you? Are you close to the hosts? He asked nervously. The boy's eyes somehow grew colder as he had a full-blown scowl directed at the now legitimately frightened Greenet. My father is the hero, Endeavor. I'm sure you've heard of him. He finally spoke again, almost shamefully. I was dragged along to meet the Yaoyorozus for some kind of partnership. Please excuse me if I don't seem thrilled to be here. The angsty teen began walking away, leaving behind a surprised Izuku. Do you want to talk about it? The boy stopped in his tracks and looked back at Izuku. You seem like you're seriously bothered by something, and trust me, it helps to talk to someone about it. So, do you want to talk about it? Izuku sounded much less like a pushover all of a sudden. The boy he was talking to looked at him in mild surprise. 1. While the son of Endeavor wasn't the most sociable person, he had met people who knew who he was. It was always the same thing. You must be so proud, you have a lot to live up to, the prodigious son of Endeavor. Surely, he'll dominate the hero charts one day, making time to protect the people and raise our next generation of heroes. Now that's a man with golden intentions. You have so much potential and talent, yet you squander it. When are you going to abandon this childish rebellion, Shoto? Don't you realize that you're meant for so much more than your siblings? Never once had someone outside his family actually asked him how he felt. And it poked the slightest bit of warmth out of his left side. What's your name? He asked. I'm Izuku Midoriya, pleasure to meet you. He extended a hand to the bicolored teen. Who took his hand? Shoto Todoroki. Likewise. Would you believe me if I told even the greatest heroes can be disappointing? Easily. 5. Meanwhile, Momo was standing in front of her mirror, looking herself over. Her hair was down and slightly curled, she was wearing a strapless red dress with a yellow belt and red heels. As much as she wanted to join the party and meet some people or person, she didn't want any potential threats to the perfect night she wanted. That's why she was waiting for her parents to give her the green light. She jumped slightly when a knock came from her door. Your guest of honor has arrived, sweetheart, I said as she walked through the door. Did anyone come with him? Momo asked. I knew who she meant by anyone. There was a little complication at the entrance, but it's been taken care of. Momo sighed in relief. Thank you, mother. Tonight, I want it just to be me and Izuku. I smiled as her daughter made her way to the party. Have fun, dear. As soon as Momo was out of sight, her smile dropped. My Momo deserves a perfect night before I tell her what the Todorokis want. I trust you'll give her what money can't buy, Izuku Midoriya. 2. Back at the party, Midoriya and Todoroki were sitting at a table, eating small portion food that they both hoped was just the appetizers. He said you couldn't be a hero? Shoto asked. Those weren't his exact words, but they might as well have been. I swear, I think he nearly dropped his smile when I asked. Izuku said as he folded his arms on the table and lowered his head. Just because there's no precedent doesn't mean it can't be done. Izuku looked up at the youngest Todoroki with wide eyes. Sure, you won't be able to be number one, and some villains can't be beat without power. But power isn't everything, and not every villain can level a city. Don't try to measure up to someone like All Might. You'll just end up being disappointed with yourself. Izuku took in all of Todoroki's words with a small smile. 3. Soon thereafter, Shoto left possibly his first friend to ask if there was going to be any soba later. Izuku was on his own again, but not feeling lonely. Although, there was something he really wanted to do. Care to dance, handsome? At first, those words sent Deku's heart into overdrive, but something was off. The voice didn't sound anything like Momo. Izuku turned around to see who was asking. The R-rated heroine, Midnight. She was wearing a dark purple dress that black at the end with a deep V-neck and a slit to expose part of her left thigh. Izuku had to take a moment to realize the situation. One of the sexiest pros in Japan was asking him to dance. 2. I'm FF flattered, R really. B but I'm W wait NG for someone to S show up. S sorry. He stuttered with a beet red face. The older lady just smirked. Oh, so who's the lucky lady? Before Izuku could answer, the sound of heels clacking against the floor stopped near his table. Izuku turned his head to see Momo in a gorgeous dress with her hair down. Angel-faced goddess, was all he could think. I know my earlier description doesn't match, but this is the closest thing I could find. Midnight saw the twinkle in his eye, and decided to leave the kids be, but not without some parting words. Ah well, maybe another time. I'll see you around, cutie. The blush on Izuku's cheeks spread across his whole face. Momo came up to him, pouting slightly. I'm sorry I kept you waiting. She huffed. Izuku quickly stood up. It's not what you think. She was only teasing, nothing more. Izuku still apologized because now Momo was somewhat upset. And he did the first thing he could think of to salvage it. He held her hand, looked her in the eye, and said, "You look really beautiful." Momo's annoyance completely evaporated as her face began warming up. "Gee, thank you. You look very handsome, Izuku." She squeezed his hand. I know you just arrived, but would you like to dance?" Momo smiled brightly. "That sounds wonderful." So the young couple made their way to the dance floor, blending in with the other couples. Momo wrapped her arms around Izuku's neck, while he held her waist. The two started moving to the music, Izuku putting his dance lesson with Mitsuki to good use. Their hearts pounded against their chests, the both of them feeling like they could explode any minute. Despite that, the moment felt very serene to them. They felt at peace in each other's presence. "You're a good dancer, Izuku," Momo decided to say. "Gee, thanks, but I wouldn't be without my aunt helping me out again." Momo giggled a bit. "I hope I didn't keep you waiting for long." "No, not at all. Believe it or not, I found someone new to talk to." "Yes, I saw her." Momo began pouting again. Izuku would say it was cute if he didn't think that would make her madder. "And not midnight. Why, you see that guy with the two-toned hair?" Momo looked over Izuku's shoulder and saw Shoto dancing with Burnin. To him, it was probably like dancing with his aunt. "Todoroki?" Momo asked in surprise. "Yeah, we talked outside. I thought he and I could both use someone to talk to." Despite Izuku's kind-hearted nature, Momo couldn't help an uncomfortable feeling sprouting inside her. But, for the sake of her perfect night with Izuku, she pushed it down for now. With the song nearing its end, Momo decided to do something bold. She connected hers and Izuku's foreheads together. It was a little uncomfortable for her neck since she was in heels and already taller than her partner, but she made do. Izuku could feel his heart racing faster from the sudden contact. He's damn lucky that their dance was so simple. He didn't have to think much, because his brain was on the verge of shutting down. When their song was over, they separated and stared into each other's eyes while still holding on to each other. That was, wow. Izuku could barely talk from their first dance. Momo giggled at his cuteness. Wow, indeed. Courtyard. The two of them moved outside to catch a breather. Momo was fanning her face and clutching her chest, her moment of bravery now worn off. Goodness, I can't believe I just did that. I'm glad Izuku seemed to enjoy it, but still. Her thoughts were interrupted by a plate of food being held in front of her. "Hungry?" Izuku asked, holding a plate for himself as well. "Thank you." Before they could start eating, Momo grabbed Izuku's hand and led him away from the other guests, into a much darker area. The heiress lifted her dress up the leg, and a lantern came out, along with a blanket. "I know it's a bit late for a picnic, but if you wouldn't mind." She spread out the blanket and lit the lantern. Izuku sat down without a second thought. "This is really romantic," Izuku stated. "I thought you might like it. Thank you for the food." She began eating, replenishing her used lipids. Everything about this moment of theirs was perfect. Delicious food, a gentle lantern glow, just the two of them under the stars. It was perfect. Too bad it didn't last. "So, you really talked to someone like Todoroki? If he's anything like his father, I wouldn't be so bold." Izuku swallowed a lump in his throat. "Why, yeah, maybe. He was pretty intense at first, his glare made me freeze. But I just saw a lonely kid, and wanted to talk to him. We had a whole conversation, and he's actually kind of nice. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but I might have made a new friend." Usually, Izuku's million-watt smiles made Momo's heart flutter, but right now it opened up a pit she was desperately trying to close. "Oh, that's wonderful." Izuku noticed the forced smile and lackluster enthusiasm. The boy mentally kicked himself, realizing that now he had forced her to think about her wretched former friends. Now sitting in a painfully awkward atmosphere, the two barely even looked at each other. It seemed like the moment was ruined, but Momo tried to at least start up a conversation. "Izuku, did you run into any hitches on your way here?" Izuku looked at her, her eyes pleading for an answer. "Yes, at the gate Awase tried to get in as my +1. I'm guessing he was jealous that I was invited. It probably would have gotten worse if your mom didn't step in." Yaoyorozu looked down shamefully. I see. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. With the mood continuing to deteriorate, Izuku had to think about how to salvage this. But honestly, the answer was obvious. He had to touch on the subject that's bothering her. So, your mother told me that you've been kinda lonely. Momo stiffened up when hearing that. You did nothing wrong, the problem is them. I know it's hard when the ones you trust end up betraying you, I've been there. You feel like there's something wrong with you, that you should have done more. But you deserve just as much as you gave them. The reality is you've made a bad choice in who you've surrounded yourself with. I'm not judging you, like I said, I've been there. But for what it's worth, they stuck with you for completely the wrong reasons. You have so much more to offer than just deep pockets. Momo's face erupted in a deep crimson blush as she placed a hand to her mouth. She willed as hard as she could to keep the tears from flowing, but they got the better of her, and she wept silently. Izuku noticed, and pulled out a handkerchief from his blazer pocket. Feeling a surge of confidence, he wipes the tears off Momo's cheeks himself. Thank you, Zuku, sniff so much, she said tearfully. Izuku took a chance and pulled her in to cry on his shoulder. It was a masterful move, except for the fact that what little makeup she had was partly smudged on his rented tux. They sat and ate again, the atmosphere around them somehow more perfect than when they started. A few tears later, Izuku and Momo were back inside after their meal. The two of them had snuck away with Momo leading Izuku elsewhere. Momo, where are we going? Izuku asked, feeling greatly nervous that a girl was holding him by the hand, and sneaking him off to who knows where. Somewhere private. She answered, not helping his nerves in the slightest. After a long trip through the halls, Momo brought Izuku to a large pair of doors. From where they were, they could hardly hear a peep from the party guests. When she opened the doors, he saw the largest bed and bedroom he had ever seen. Looking around, he saw a bookshelf of encyclopedias, a large vanity with a few brushes out, and a large table covered in a white sheet. As Izuku was dragged in, he had only one thought, holy woe. I'm in a girl's room. And she brought me in. Momo moved him to take a seat on her cushioned windowsill, while she moved to the table. Momo, what are you doing? He asked. The girl had a smile on her face and a stronger blush than him. Remember what you said, that you'd like to hear me play piano for you. Izuku gulped and nodded. Momo pulled the sheet off the table, revealing it to actually be a large wooden piano. Izuku was lost and stumped on what to say, and just stuttered. Momo silenced him with a finger to his lips. Just relax and enjoy, Izuku. With that, she took her seat and pressed her fingers on the keys. Her first song was upbeat. Loved Gravity Falls as a kid, couldn't help myself. 1. The next song was something Izuku would burn into his memory. Opening parenthesis ... Pick whichever one you like best. 4. Izuku stood up from his seating place and gave Momo an energetic round of applause. That was so beautiful, every note felt so elegant. Momo blushed and bowed her head. Oh, thank you very much, Izuku. Truth be told, this is the first time I've ever played for someone outside of my family. The two of them sat down on Momo's miniature balcony next to each other. The window was open, hitting them with the cool nightly breeze. The room was illuminated by the stars and full moon. The extremely faint chatter of guests made good mood music, and as a little icing on the cake, they were touching shoulders due to the limited space on Momo's windowsill. The perfect moment. Time to take the plunge, Momo. Izuku. Momo gulped as she had his undivided attention. What do you think of me? The question was honestly kind of sudden to Izuku, and he didn't immediately know how to answer it. Good thing, she continued. We've spent quite a lot of time together, helping and learning about each other. So I just wanted a solid understanding of what you feel about me. I don't want to feel like I'm in the dark about something or I have the wrong idea. Izuku knew that saying took immense courage from the young Yaoyorozu. She was nervously playing with her fingers and refusing to make eye contact. His first instinct was to shoot down any potential fears he knew she had. Did your friends say something? Whatever it is, it's not true. They don't know anything. It's not them, at least not entirely. I genuinely want to know how you feel about me. If you don't want to answer right now, I understand. Izuku thought to himself. How did he feel about Momo? She's kind, smart, beautiful and an all-around wonderful person. All that is just on the surface. Calling her the light of his life wouldn't even be a stretch at this point. What's amazing to him is that they've only known each other for more or less a month, but it feels like they've been together for years. Together, Izuku took a breath and looked Momo dead in the eye. Momo, you're incredible. There's so many positives about you, I could run my mouth about them all day. I think you're the most amazing person I've ever met. So kind, patient, helpful, loyal. Not to mention humble. Most people who grow up like you think they're on top of the world, but you treat everyone with respect. That's one of the things I love most about you. Momo's heart skipped a beat as she registered that word in her mind. Love. 1. I'm still trying to work out what we are too, but since we're being open, I honestly don't think I deserve everything you've done for me. I know you don't want someone rich or powerful, but why you could do better than a shy pushover, stop it. Izuku looked up at the now stern-faced Momo. She held his shoulder and spoke. Izuku, how can someone so outstanding have such a low self-image? You risked yourself for me when I was a stranger to you, you put up with my problems that I drag you into without so much as a complaint, and you've even helped me better myself despite all the complications I've brought into your life. You deserve more than my family could ever buy, and I'll be damned if a few narcissistic peons say otherwise. 2. Izuku was completely shocked by Momo's change in attitude, raised voice, and choice of words. She had tears in her eyes as she continued. I'm surprised you can still praise me with a straight face. After leaving my classmates, I fell into a depression. I'm pathetic enough that I still feel tethered to them when I know they don't really care about me. And somehow, you're still getting roped into my problems, because I don't. This time, Izuku interrupted her with his hands on her cheeks, wiping away her tears. Nobody ever said being betrayed was easy to get over. It can shatter people, ruin them, but you're still working toward becoming a better you. You don't even realize how strong you are. With such high emotions, and the two of them operating on the same emotional level, it was only a matter of time before someone exploded. He's saved me more than he even realizes, and he still thinks lowly of himself. She's gifted in every imaginable aspect, and is still a mess of self-doubt. Despite coming from completely different worlds, their feelings were mirrored perfectly. I'd be in such a worse place if it weren't for him. My life has gotten better every day since I met her. Finally, they both scream at each other what they've been dying to say. With tears in their eyes and a mess of new and unfamiliar emotions brewing within them, they finally got it out. How can you not see you're the most wonderful person in my life? ... After blurting out their true feelings, a deep silence washed over them as their tears flowed more intensely. And they laughed together through the sobs. Somehow, the complete tragedy in their lives was entertaining. Oh, for the love of... I guess we're both disasters. Izuku said while holding his sides. That we are, Izuku. That we are. Momo agreed with a huge smile as she took off her shoes and sat on her bed. But let's not try to figure out who's worse, otherwise we'll never get anything done. For some reason, Izuku found it appropriate to copy her actions and path. Quote. Hey, Momo, I think I have a complete answer for your question. Izuku said, still standing in front of her. Momo looked somewhat confused before Izuku held her cheeks in his hands. The next few seconds were a blur as she was pulled into a loving kiss. Not just a peck, not long enough to be considered sexual, but enough to leave Momo completely stunned. 3. To me, you're the most beautiful, intelligent, kind-hearted person, and I love you. It was a struggle at the end, but he pushed it out. And it was worth it. Momo cried more intensely than before, reaching up to Izuku and holding him closely. I could write a whole book about how wonderful you are. Izuku stayed silent and just rubbed her back. When she finally separated her face from the crook of his neck, she cleaned herself up and looked at him with wanting eyes. Can I have another? She asked timidly. Izuku knew what she meant and blushed. I honestly didn't think I'd get this far. Regardless, he puckered his lips along with Momo this time, and brought them together for a little peck. It wasn't much, but it still set their hearts on fire. And one of them was in heat. 2. Momo stood up and pulled Izuku in for another kiss. He was surprised at first, but got into it. This one was initiated by her, and it was longer than 5 seconds. Longer than 10 seconds. No doubt, if it weren't for the need to breathe, they wouldn't have separated from their intimate lip lock. Ha. Sorry, I shouldn't have. She felt some now familiar hands on her hip and cheek. You don't ever have to apologize for that. See, can we do it again? Momo's eyes widened, before wholeheartedly accepting. Their lips connected yet again, this time there was even some moaning. 2. In order to compensate for the need to breathe, they took the smallest breaks in between making out to breathe. The result of this decision was the kiss becoming open mouth, and curious tongues finding their way into their partners' mouths. At this point, ration and restraint were completely out the window, leaving the two to be guided by their overflowing emotions and desire for one another. The two teenagers were now on top of Momo's bed, with Momo beneath Izuku. Taking a chance, he decides to kiss her neck. Ha! Just like that, the most tantalizing sound he's ever heard escaped her throat. Momo used a shaky hand to grasp his green locks. Her fingers easily slipped through his soft curls, and she instinctively began massaging his scalp. Ah! And the cutest and sexiest sound she'd ever heard escaped from his lips. The two of them finally took a breather to look each other in the eye, faces completely flushed. They could see it plain as day. Neither of them had any intention of stopping now. We're probably going to get in huge trouble for this, Izuku said as he took off his blazer and threw it to the floor. Do you want to stop? Momo asked, biting her finger lightly. Would you think less of me if I said no? Izuku asked back, now with his bow tie gone and the collar of his shirt undone. Not in the slightest, Momo answered. It was a long night for the two, with no interruptions. Only their passionate love. 3. The next morning, 7:22 a.m. The next morning, Izuku woke up from the most wonderful rest he'd ever had. But when he opened his eyes, something seemed off. This isn't my room, and this bed is too luxurious to be mine. Wait, am I in Momo's mansion? What happened last night? Okay. There was a party, we danced, we came here and… Oh, God. Izuku's heartbeat began to skyrocket, and he will forever wonder how he didn't pass out right then and there. The events of last night replayed themselves in his memory vividly. He couldn't believe it was the truth, and initially believed it was a dream. But evidence suggests it was anything but. He realized he was completely naked. From the waist up. How far did we go last night? And what's around my waist? Izuku felt two things hugging his waist and midsection tightly. Almost afraid, he looked under the covers and saw a pair of arms. As his awareness started kicking in again, he realized he felt two large warm pillows pressing against his back. The situation he was in finally hit the poor greenette like a train. I slept with Momo. Well, not exactly that, but close enough. I stayed late without even telling my mom. Oh God, what are her parents gonna do? The whole thing made his whole body tremble and his heart start pounding. MMF. 5 more minutes. He froze the instant he heard Momo's tired groan. His first emotion was fear of what she'd do or say. Or her state of wardrobe. If it's like his, he might die. He decided to gently squeeze her arms, but that only made her squeeze him tighter. Zuzu. Not now, she tiredly said. Zuzu. A nickname. Is she talking in her sleep or… His train of thought was derailed when he felt something warm, wet and slimy going down his neck. And now she's drooling on me. It's cute, but it's disgusting. Momo. Time to wake up. He whispered, reaching an arm to go to the back of the sleeping beauty's head. 2. No, honey, I want to visit Italy, for our honeymoon. Honeymoon. Is she asleep or just messing with me? Izuku will likely never get an answer, but he was thrown off by something wet, slimy and wriggly pressing down on his neck. She was now licking the back of his neck. Not too rough. Izu. 2. Momo adjusted herself slightly to plant her face in Izuku's hair. In doing so, a piece of fabric slipped down slightly. All of a sudden, Izuku felt two soft nubs on the pillows on his back. For the love of all that's holy, if this girl releases a moan, he's going to die. Izuku was feeling very envious of Momo right now. While she was having the best dream of her life, he was dealing with the stresses of reality. However, the next phrase out of her mouth made any negative emotions dissipate completely. 1. I love you too, darling. Any desire to wake her up completely died with those few words. Suddenly, Izuku felt an overwhelming sense of peace and belonging. Maybe this wasn't the worst-case scenario. Maybe he could indulge a little. Definitely not take advantage of her, but get a little extra rest. After last night, he earned it. Too bad it's not meant to be. With Izuku's messy hair in her face, tickling her nose, Momo sniffled and stirred awake. Izuku felt reasonably disgusted by what happened next. Achoo, she sneezed. It was adorable, but it landed on his back. At the very least, it was all spit and no snot. In spite of the disgusting wake-up call, Deku couldn't find it in him to get mad at her. But that may have something to do with what he saw. With a tired groan, Momo rose up out of the silky covers and stretched her arms out. She was completely unaware of the starstruck Izuku admiring her morning self. Even with drool running down her chin, squinted eyes, and messy black hair, Momo was still a goddess to him. He was so hypnotized by her presence that he forgot about what was wrong. But her wandering eyes led him back to it. Momo wasn't really surprised to see Izuku, but her eyes locked on his exposed upper body. She felt herself start to heat up. Then she looked up, and she and him locked eyes, awkwardly opening her mouth to say something, but all that came out were nervous noises. But the finishing move for both of them is when they look down at the same time, at the same place. Momo's strapless bra had slipped off, meaning she was half naked too. Ah, da, they both shrieked. Momo tried to cover herself with a blanket, and Deku fell off the edge of the bed. The two of them could not use their inside voices as they either demanded answers or profusely apologized. After a few minutes of discussion, they could finally mull over the events of last night. They could both agree that they were irresponsible and reckless. But no way in hell would they take it back. The only thing they'd come to regret was not making themselves decent, because when Momo's parents and Izuku's mother burst in, they were both half naked with Momo hiding behind a blanket, and Izuku behind a pillow. 2. Somebody help these stupid nerds. While Izuku and Momo were making out on Momo's bed, they failed to realize that they both had a set of eyes watching them. Slowly shutting the door with a shocked expression was Ayaoyorozu. After the two teenagers disappeared from the rest of the party, she grew curious and decided to go looking for them. And she found them in the first place she looked, Momo's bedroom. Trying not to startle them, she only opened the door a crack wide. She heard and saw crying, hugging, laughing, and love confessions all in one night. The climax of it all was when they kissed. She cried happily for them, thanking whatever deity brought these two together. But soon, her emotions took a massive turn. She heard light moans coming from them, and 2 consecutive loud moans. Looking back into the room, she saw that the real climax was approaching. I saw Izuku remove his blazer and bow tie, and heard the both of them consent to throwing caution to the wind for the rest of the night. With no clue of how to feel about this, I just closed the door silently and wanted to pretend she never saw the beginning of their second act. That would have been nice, if only her phone didn't vibrate. Inko. Hello, Is Izuku still at your place? It's getting late and I can't seem to get a hold of him. I silently screamed as she finished reading the text. What was she supposed to say? How do you tell a woman that her son is making out restlessly with a girl at a party? No matter how you try to phrase or sugarcoat it, there's no easy way to say it. Hello, Inko. Yes, Izuku is still here. Momo and him are a little focused on each other right now. Inko. I see. Well, let Izuku know he has a curfew coming up. Fun fact. Izuku never had a curfew before, because he never had a reason or friend to go out late at night before. And, in a hilarious twist of fate, he ended up breaking curfew the first night without even a call. The things Momo does to him. About that. I have a feeling he's going to be running a tad late. Inko. What do you mean? Could you possibly make time for a visit tomorrow morning? Inko. Tomorrow morning. What is my son doing that he can't at least answer his phone? He and Momo are, from what I can tell, getting some things off their chests. I promise you, It will be easier to explain when you come over tomorrow. It most definitely was not. Now, sitting in shame on Momo's bed, wearing the same clothes from last night, the teens were facing the bitter expressions of their parents. Their mothers were clearly disappointed, while the father seemed more mad than disappointed. You caught us? Momo asked nervously, to which I nodded. You tried calling me? Izuku asked, to which Inko nodded. How many times? Oh, I don't know, check your phone. Inko's voice was cold and agitated. Izuku flinched at the tone he'd never heard from his mother before. With shaky hands, he reached into his blazer pocket and pulled out his phone. His eyes nearly jumped out of his skull as they read the notifications from last night. 42 missed calls, 76 unread messages, 6. One night, Sakusei piped up, pinching the bridge of his nose and sounding the most agitated one in the room. You two are left to your own devices for one night, and this happens. The weight of the Yaoyorozu patriarch's words made Izuku and Momo want to sink down to the other side of the earth. Izuku, we're leaving, Inko said, leaving no room for debate. Izuku shakily stood up, mouthing a silent, sorry, to Momo. She watched as he disappeared around the corner of her door with his head low. As for you, young lady. Sakusei grabbed her attention. The young heiress gulped, preparing for the hardest verbal punishment her father had ever given her. Meanwhile, Izuku and Inko were in her car, on the road back home. The one time I let you go to a party. Izuku shrank in his seat. The minute you're not under any supervision. He shrank some more. I understand that it was a very emotional moment between you two, for you to get everything off your chests. But I can't just let what you did slide. She suddenly stopped the car and motioned for Izuku to step out. He was confused when he realized where they were. Inko told him to take another look at his phone. Flashback to last night. Mitsuki. Hey Inko, how's Izuku's fancy date night going? Inko. Can't say right now. Mitsuki. Don't give me that. I gave him advice and dance lessons. I deserve some details. Inko. No, I literally can't say because I don't know. He hasn't come home, and I can't reach him. All I know is he's at his girlfriend's house. Mitsuki. He's already sleeping with her. When he pulls out, bring him here, no questions asked. Present. You can't mean. Inko locked the car doors. I'm not the only one who tried to reach you. She tapped a button on her phone. Mom, please tell me it's not. Slam. Asterisk. Izuku was cut off by the front door of the Bakugo house swinging open. He was greeted by a livid Mitsuki at the door, covered in a malicious aura. Izuku. 2. Deku nearly wet himself at the sight and how her low, growling voice said his name. Also, you're walking home. Bye-bye. Inko suddenly drove off, leaving a petrified Izuku in her exhaust. No, Mom, please. I'm sorry, come back. Please don't leave me. 3. He was grabbed by the back of his collar and slowly dragged to the house. You've got some explaining to do. That was the last thing he heard before the devil dragged him down to the pits of hell to face his punishment. 2. An hour later, Izuku limped back home lifelessly, lacking the strength to lift his feet all the way off the ground. He finally reached his home, walking past Inko, who was helping herself to a platter of leftovers given to her by the Yaoyorozus. As he reached his room, Inko informed him that he was grounded for the weekend. Although, after what he went through with his aunt Mitsuki, that was the least of his concerns. So, he did the only thing he could do now, crawl in bed and wallow in his shame. Yaoyorozu household. Momo was currently burying herself in her luxurious sheets, wallowing in shame for her actions. Her parents were in the master bedroom, Sakusei having a cup of lavender tea to calm his nerves. I thought it was appropriate for how thoroughly he chewed their daughter out. Don't you think you were a bit hard on her? I asked. Perhaps. I sat next to her husband. This morning's surprise may have been less than ideal, but let's look at on the bright side. At least now we can say for certain that they're an item. Sakusei covered his mouth and muttered. That could be a problem. Pardon. Last night, Endeavor, the number 2 hero, came to me with a proposition. I groaned as she knew where this was going, now being reminded partially of why Izuku was accepted so quickly. Endeavor has a rich history of accomplishments, and is well known for his tenacity in his pursuit of the #1 spot. The Bast even went and had children for the sole purpose of creating a powerful heir to achieve his dream. Their tools bred for his selfish ambition. His tunnel vision turned him into a ruthless man who rarely shows any hint of remorse. And now he was proposing a quirk marriage between his youngest son and their daughter, which explains why Shoto was brought to the party. Just when Momo and Izuku start getting comfortable together, this hot-headed madman comes along to ruin it. 1. He wouldn't resort to threatening a quirkless child, would he? I asked. Who knows, but I'm afraid to find out. Especially since Momo already feels he's being dragged into her problems, now this. 1. Sakusei rubbed his eyes in frustration. We'll leave it to them, I said, causing Sakusei to whip his head at her. So Izuku may not come from a renowned family, it's plain to see the positive impact he's had on Momo. And if what I heard last night is to be believed, she won't stand for whatever the #2 hero wants. Meanwhile, Momo had changed into her casual attire and was lying on her side in bed, hugging a large pillow tightly and feeling very downtrodden. She had been grounded for the weekend, forbidden from taking a single step out of her bedroom for any reason. The thing that upset her most, however, was what she was doing. Hugging her pillow to replicate the feeling of holding her Izuku. Just one night and I'm already addicted. What has he done to me? The poor, rich girl thought. Drowning in her own thoughts, she needed someone to talk to. Fortunately, her parents never said or did anything about her phone privileges. Midoriya household, somehow, Izuku found a way to feel even more shame. Lying on his side, he'd wrapped himself up in his blanket to recreate the feeling of being held by Momo. Just one night and I'm already addicted. What has she done to me? His thoughts were interrupted by a chime from his phone. While he was unable to leave his room except for the bathroom, he never had his phone privileges revoked. Momo. Hello, Izuku. Hi. An awkward start all over again. Momo. How are you? Izuku. I could be better. After some severe chewing out, I'm grounded for the weekend. Momo. That makes 2 of us. Anything you want to talk about? Izuku. Well, I'm not so sure there's much more to say. Momo. Right. We said some things, did some things, and faced the consequences. All said and done. Izuku. Yeah, Momo. Yes. The both of them put their respective devices back down. Before picking them up again and typing at the exact same time. Both. I miss you already. The two both froze, before laughing to themselves. Damn, we're still a couple of disasters. Momo. I know it might be strange after just one night, and we didn't technically do much. But it's honestly kind of lonely. Izuku. Trust me, I get it. I really don't know how I'm going to be able to fall asleep tonight. I guess we're both kind of strange. Momo. Lucky you woke up first and actually got to enjoy the morning aftermath before our parents came in. Izuku. Wait, so you really were asleep? Momo. What reason did you have to think I wasn't? Izuku. Nothing, just, did you know you talk in your sleep? Momo. I what? Oh, what did I say? And so, Izuku told her of the adorable and somewhat amusing things she mumbled in her sleep. Momo turned into a tomato after hearing it all and sank deeper into her sheets. Izuku. Hey, it's okay. I think it's cute, and you didn't say anything bad. Momo. I think I need some breakfast. And an aspirin. Izuku. Right, I'll let you get to that. Bye. Momo. I love you. It took Izuku almost a minute to register the meaning behind those 3 simple words. Once it sunk in, he allowed himself to shed a tear of joy. Izuku. I love you too. The two of them smiled as they put down their devices for real this time. They lied in bed, happier than they had ever been. Todoroki household, Shoto was lying on his bed in his room, staring at the ceiling. His father was already off for work in, what Shoto would say, a suspiciously good mood. He needed something to do, something other than intense training. He reached for his phone. Todoroki. Hello. Shoto received no response after half a minute. It's possible that Midoriya was busy with something at home, and he may have interrupted him. Midoriya. Hey Todoroki. How's it going? Todoroki. I was bored and wanted someone to talk to. Blunt and to the point. Midoriya. I get it, I'm not really doing anything at the moment. Todoroki. No beach training today. Is it muscle fatigue? Midoriya. No, although being able to go there would be nice. But my mom grounded me after I was a little late for curfew. Todoroki reread that sentence as it struck a chord within the icy hot teen. Todoroki. Your mom grounded you. Midoriya. Yeah, but it's not that I blame her. I made her worry. She's always worrying about me, making sure I'm okay and happy with myself. It may sound kinda lame, but I'm really glad I have her always in my corner. Midoriya's words caused Shoto to pause and reflect. He'd spent so much time loathing his father, that he'd forgotten all about his mother. Truthfully, it made him feel disgusted in himself. Midoriya. Todoroki, are you still there? Is something wrong? You'd be surprised. 1. Todoroki. Your mother sounds like a wonderful person. I'd like to meet her. Midoriya. Oh, well I'm sure she'd like to meet you too, but maybe after a while. I mean no offense, but you and I only met last night. Todoroki. Was I too forward? I apologize. I'm not the best at social aspects. 1. Midoriya. I get it, and neither am I to be honest. I'm all awkward and stuttery. Sometimes, I find it hard to believe that people enjoy being around me. Todoroki. Isn't it obvious? You're a really caring person. The boys' conversation was interrupted by a female voice coming from Todoroki's kitchen. Shoto. Breakfast's ready. Hurry up before Natsuo scarfs it all down. Ah come on, sis, I don't eat that much, said the second biggest and second youngest Todoroki child. Todoroki. I gotta go eat breakfast. Thanks for the talk, friend. Izuku did a double take as he reread Shoto's words. He, once again, shed a tear in his bed as pumped his fist in the air. I have absolutely no regrets from last night. 4. Meanwhile, the youngest Todoroki made his way to the kitchen area, where he saw his older brother and sister, Natsuo and Fuyumi, enjoying the meal the latter prepared. Good morning, you guys, Shoto said as he sat down next to his brother, surprising his older siblings for some reason. Morning Shoto, did you sleep well? Fuyumi asked. Yeah, I did, thanks for asking. The two looked at him even more strangely, but Shoto ignored the looks as he began eating. Thanks for the meal, sis, it was really good, he said with the most bizarre look on his face. His lips were in a straight line, and his eyes were neutral, closest thing to a smile in a long time. Okay, I can't take this anymore. Natsuo finally piped up. Natsu, Fuyumi scolded. Can't take what anymore, brother? Shoto asked innocently. First you come here and greet us, then you sit and eat with us instead of taking the food to your room, and then you compliment Fuyumi's cooking, which is delicious, I won't argue there. My point is, you've been acting strangely since you and Dad came home from that party last night. Natsu, stop it, it's not a bad thing that he's more positive. Fuyumi butted in. More positive? Huh. Shoto then pulled out his phone from his pocket, but didn't turn it on. Maybe it's because I made a new friend at that party. His siblings had different reactions, but the same level of shock. You made a friend. That has to be the weirdest thing yet. Natsuo shouted. Seriously, that's fantastic, Shoto. Well, I think we're friends, he began softly. He approached me, but we got to talking, we had a few things in common and tried to help each other through any issues we had. And we even traded numbers to keep in touch. Those are things friends do, right? This was honestly the saddest thing they'd ever heard their baby brother say. Having a friend for the first time made Shoto happy, and he clearly wanted to hold on to it. The problem is that, while he's confident in himself and rarely ever intimidated, he's in a territory completely foreign to him. He must be afraid of messing up in some way. Natsuo and Fuyumi had a single thought. Must protect. 1. Yes, those are all things friends do, and it sounds like you've made a really good one. Fuyumi stated. Yeah, and he didn't treat me differently when I said I'm Endeavor's son. Flabbergasted, Fuyumi and Natsuo didn't know whether to be impressed with Shoto's friend or fear for his safety. Why don't you invite him over for dinner sometime? I'd love to get to know him myself. Fuyumi said. Yeah, now I'm really interested in this guy. Natsuo agreed. Shoto looked at his phone's dark screen again. I'll think about it. Somehow, Izuku managed to get through a weekend in captivity. But that wasn't the end of it. The real punishment is what came after, a Momo-free week. No physical contact or interaction with his girlfriend for 7 whole days. So, with nothing better to do, Izuku was spending time at his training beach, doing his part to clean the place up a bit. Lately, cleaning up the beach had become his main focus in his free time. Of course, he still practiced martial arts to keep it fresh in his mind, but there's a reason why cleaning the beach took priority. Gotta get this place clear of any trash, so I can bring Momo here. Oh man, I'm in that phase where all I think about is my partner. Izuku shook his head and decided to take a breather. He sat down next to his workout bag, and heard his phone vibrating from within. A message from Todoroki. Curious, he read the text. Todoroki. Midoriya, are you busy tomorrow? Midoriya. No, why? Todoroki. Well, I told my older siblings that I made a friend, and my sister's been asking me to invite you over for dinner. Midoriya. Oh, that might be a problem. It's not that I don't want to, but I'm kinda not allowed to go out at night for a while. Todoroki. That's fine. Would lunch work instead? Midoriya. Yeah, let's do lunch, if it's no trouble. Todoroki. Not at all. I'll send you a time and my address. Midoriya. Great, I'll be there. Todoroki. If my father tries anything, I'll trap him in a glacier. 10. Midoriya. What? Todoroki. See you tomorrow. Izuku wasn't sure how to take that end bit, but for now decided to shrug it off. Meanwhile, an angry Pomeranian was going for a midday jog. Fucking Deku, Katsuki thought while grinding his teeth. First he ignores me, then he punches me, then I hear some bullshit about him fighting back, and to top it all he dances with the old bat. The next time I see him, I'm gonna. 1. He stopped as he noticed a head of messy green hair along the trash-ridden coastline. Bakugo's fists tightened as smoke began rising from them. There you are. No more hiding. Without another second wasted, he menacingly stomped across the sand towards the damned nerd. You. Deku jumped slightly as he realized who just yelled at him. Turning around slowly, he was greeted by a furious Katsuki. KK Kachan. He stuttered fearfully. Figures you'd be hiding here. Trash belongs in a dump, after all. This was not good. Katsuki's seems even more livid than usual. Why? It's been weeks since they saw each other. He wasn't given time to ponder it further as the blonde grabbed Deku by his tank top collar. You little fucking bastard, you're dead. Ya hear me, I'll kill you. He yelled, getting all up in Izuku's face. What did I do? He asked in fear. Don't give me that shit. You know what you did. You danced with the hag, you fucker. Oh crap, he knows. She was just teaching me a few things. And what's more, Katsuki roared, completely drowning out Izuku's argument. It all goes back to the same damn reason as the other shit you pulled. Ignoring me, punching me, beating up my crew, now this. It always goes back to that bitch you're simping for. With that last phrase, a large part of Izuku's fear is replaced with something entirely different. What are you gonna do now that you don't have your whore to protect you? Katsuki's anger subsided momentarily when he felt an intense pressure on his wrist. Take it back, Izuku muttered, keeping his grip on Bakugo's wrist. What did you just say to me, you little bastard? Katsuki's yell didn't do much other force Izuku to tighten his grip. Now he was surprised, this was actually starting to hurt. The next shocker is what Izuku said back to him with a face that was still fearful, but also angry. Angrier than he had ever seen the nerd. You heard me, take it back, what is going on here? A third voice interrupted the boys. It was a police officer doing his patrol, who walked down to separate what looked like a fight between two kids. You boys better cut this out, or we can have a nice chat, over at the station. Still angry with Bakugo, Deku shoves him off before grabbing his stuff and walking away angrily. Katsuki could only stare at Deku's back, no longer recognizing who replaced the shy, cowardly nerd. He was so busy questioning what the hell just happened, that he didn't notice the quizzical look the police officer was giving him. Wait, isn't this the infamous Bakugo from Aldera Junior High? My niece told me about him. Stories that he said he'd be the next #1, yet he gets into fights. No, something isn't right here. Perhaps Aldera could use a little inspection. 9. Later, Izuku reached home and had his adrenaline high wear off. He realized what he said and did. He stood up to Kachan. Strangely though, he didn't really feel afraid. Sure, there was still a little fear in the uncertainty of what he would do to retaliate, but he actually felt like he could do something about it in return. Is this what confidence feels like? 2. Meanwhile, Momo had just wrapped up weapons training with one of her tutors, and was wiping the sweat off her brow with her towel. She decided to take a revitalizing shower, but her parents had summoned her to their study instead. She was met with their grim expressions. "Mother, father, you asked for me?" she asked. "Yes, take a seat, dear." I motioned for the empty chair in front of them. She didn't like where this was going. It was a dreadfully familiar scene. "Do you remember a young Todoroki at our event last week?" Momo nodded. "Yes, although I never spoke with him. Izuku did and claims to have bonded with him." This was news to her parents, and gave strength to whatever hope they had. Well, his father, Enji Todoroki, accompanied him. Momo gulped. "Flame hero. Endeavor." Sakusei sighed and finally spoke up. "I'd like to get to the point. He's requested your presence for a lunch with him and his son, tomorrow." 3. A bitter taste was left in Momo's mouth as she realized what this was, another attempt at an arranged union solely for selfish reasons. Momo didn't want to judge Todoroki since Izuku seemed to think positively about him, but all this was painting the Todorokis in a bad light to her. "I know, I'm sick of all of this as well, but Endeavor specifically said that unless you're already engaged, I'll go, father." Momo interrupted, shocking her parents. "I beg your pardon," Sakusei asked. "Nani?" I asked. 2. Izuku befriended that boy, and I trust his judgment. That's not to say I'll even consider whatever his father tries to offer, but I can at least get to know him since we'll likely be introduced to each other again by Izuku. The parents could get behind Momo's logic. Entertaining Endeavor for the moment would mean he's less likely to do something stupid. However, if Izuku were to find out or get involved in some way, but what are the odds of that? 8. Later that night, Izuku was laying his head to rest, tired both mentally and physically. "Let's see, I trained at the beach, got harassed by Kachan for the first time in a while. I told him to take back what he said about Momo, and a cop had to break us up. Oh, and I agreed to lunch with the Todorokis. I can't seem to catch a break." Izuku sighed tiredly. "I can help you relax if you want." Izuku's eyes shot open at the familiar voice, but uncharacteristically seductive tone. "It was half midnight and half, Momo," he gasped. Standing in front of his bedroom door in a short, red nightgown was his official girlfriend. "What are you doing here?" he asked nervously, starting to get aroused by her choice in nightwear. Momo just pouted and turned her head. "Good evening to you too, my loving boyfriend. And here I thought I was welcome." Izuku quickly waved his hands in front of his face, firing apologies in rapid succession. Momo simply giggled and put a finger to his lips, causing him to go silent. "I was only teasing. Sorry, but you're adorable when you're flustered." Now Izuku had gone full tomato. Momo was on his bed, slowly climbing on top of him, until she had him pinned beneath her, his eyes not daring to travel south. Momo admired his politeness, but this was not the time or place for that. "Darling, you're allowed to look." Izuku felt her soft hand stroking his cheek as he allowed her to redirect his gaze. Then he saw them. Momo's soft, firm, developed, large C-cup breasts. What the heck is going on here? How did Momo get in my room? When did she get so bold? Has she always had this nightgown? Did she wear it just for me? Wait, damn it brain, not now. Almost as if she could hear his thoughts, Momo planted a soft kiss to his forehead. That simple action made his mind go blank. "Zuzu, you're more than welcome to look. In fact, I like having your eyes on me." Momo's next act caused Izuku to freeze. She kissed him on the lips. It was a loving, lustful kiss, causing him to moan and whimper beneath her. When she released him, There was a string of saliva keeping them linked. Momo moved to push her chest in poor Izuku's face. At this rate, he would pass out. Do you enjoy them? Her voice was hot and husky, and whispered in his ear. They're all yours, baby. Reality. Izuku jolted awake as he searched around his bedroom for a devilishly gorgeous seducer. Fortunately, yet disappointingly, he found none. But he felt something odd. Something warm, moist and sticky. In his crotch, he pulled away his sheets and noticed a sizable wet stain on his boxers. Somebody help me. 5. Todoroki household, 12:30 a.m. 2. Izuku was walking down the street towards his friend's house, the images of his dreams still flashing in his mind. Relax, Izuku, it's normal to have those kinds of dreams about someone you love. But today, we're not going to think about Momo. Today, it's a nice lunch with Todoroki, getting to know his other family members. Nobody's even going to mention Momo, and absolutely no chance I'll get to see her today. That's what this is, a Momo-free day. Nothing to make me even think about. Izuku. Midoriya nearly tripped and fell flat on his face when he heard that endearing voice. Looking forward in utter shock, he saw the girl of his dreams. Literally. Momo. Flashback. Endeavor walked in the living room with a grin on his face. Shoto. Great news. We're having a very special guest join us for lunch. Shoto looked at his father with disdain. Yes, my friend is coming over. Endeavor grew confused by this statement. Hey Shoto, you said he likes katsudon, right? Fuyumi asked from the kitchen, prompting both Shoto and Endeavor to take a look inside. They saw Fuyumi cooking multiple dishes in an apron, with Natsuo graciously volunteering to be the taste tester. What in the world is going on here? Endeavor shouted. I invited the friend I made at that party for lunch, partially because these two wouldn't stop pestering me for it. And cold Shoto is back. Fuyumi better make some soba. And you only tell me of this now. Natsuo decided to pipe up. Well, sorry, but in case you forgot, Dad, we live here too. Endeavor only scoffed. Yes, I'm being reminded of that right now. Whoever this friend is, reschedule your meeting. We can't do that, he's set to arrive in 5 minutes. Fuyumi argued. I'm not postponing this for some stranger you're trying to set me up with. Shoto answered coldly. Right now, tension was rather high in the Todoroki household, as usual when Daddy Dearest was home. Thankfully, we have Fuyumi willing to compromise. How about we do both lunches? She suggested. Shoto's friend is coming to meet me in Natsu, and Dad's guest is just to meet you and Shoto, right? There's no reason it can't be all of us at the table, we've got the room and food. It was a very reasonable request, and no one would have to cancel anything. So they went along with it, albeit begrudgingly. Present, Shoto went to the entrance to greet his guests. Midoriya, glad you could make it. Izuku smiled at Todoroki's warm welcome. Thanks for inviting me, Todoroki. Shoto looked to the side and saw who he assumed was the person his father invited. You're the Yaoyorozu daughter, aren't you? He asked. Momo nodded. Momo, it's a pleasure to meet you. Likewise. He said that, but he wasn't pleased. The trio walked into the house, took off their shoes and went to the dining room. They were met by a woman with white hair and red highlights, wearing glasses. Welcome in. Thank you for making time to join us for a meal. They all sat down. Deku in between Shoto and Momo, the three of them across from Natsuo and Fuyumi, and Endeavor sitting at the end of the table. They began introductions, with Fuyumi taking the role of welcoming hostess. I'm Shoto's older sister, Fuyumi, and this is Natsuo, he's a second year in high school. The second youngest waved politely. Shoto took it as his cue to introduce his friend. This is the friend I met during the Yaoyorozu's party, Midoriya. And nice to meet you all. He straightened up and said. While the Todoroki children seemed to like him, Endeavor was silently growling. This must be a joke. Of all the friends Shoto could have chosen, it's this scrawny child the Yaoyorozu's favor. And why is he next to the girl instead of Shoto? My name is Momo Yaoyorozu, a pleasure to be here. While the situation was vexing to Enji, it was far from the worst possible outcome. He decided to go along with it since Momo seemed somewhat comfortable. The six began digging in, enjoying Fuyumi's cooking immensely. At some point, they began talking. You're planning to go to UA, 2. Todoroki. Momo asked in mild surprise. Yeah, on recommendation. He answered in his stoic tone. What a coincidence, as am I. Endeavor had a small grin. I'm sure the two of you would put your classmates to shame, he said. Midoriya, meanwhile, had a less than pleased expression. Endeavor had barely looked at him, and was giving Shoto and Momo most of the attention. It didn't surprise him, but it stung a little, almost making him feel unwelcome. So, Midoriya, you got any hobbies? Natsuo asked. Oh, yeah, I take notes on quirks and heroes, and analyze their abilities. I've been doing it since I was 4. I've got whole volumes of notebooks at home. Normally, Deku wouldn't be this open, but he felt like sharing today. Maybe because he had been invited to lunch, and that his friend's siblings seemed to like him. And his girlfriend was occasionally squeezed his hand underneath the table. You must know a lot about quirks if you've been doing it for that long. Natsuo commented. It's a better use of your time to focus on improving yourself. Endeavor interjected. Izuku looked down slightly. He didn't exactly disagree, and he had been improving, but he knew Endeavor meant to chip away at him. Natsuo and Shoto glared at their father for that. So, I recently started teaching at an elementary school. Fuyumi picked up the conversation again. The kids go on about what they wanna be when they grow up. What about you, Midoriya, any goals? He knew she meant well, but it didn't stop the sharp pain in his chest. I'm not sure, he answered timidly. I've wanted to be a hero since I was little, but that probably wouldn't work out well. I'm still weighing my options. Endeavor scoffed at the boy's timidity, judging him to be a coward. Hey, it's okay to not have a clear idea. Just take some time and think about it. I'm sure whatever career path you choose, you'd be a great asset. Fuyumi's kind words definitely made him feel better. So did Momo's hand-holding. So, do you have theories and ideas for how to use quirks? Shoto asked. Why yeah, Midoriya answered. Shoto looked down at his food and thought. Perhaps this summer, I could have a more open-minded trainer. Eventually, they all finished their meal, Shoto deciding to walk the guests out, also deciding he'd like a moment away from his father. Well, that wasn't awful. Fuyumi tried to be positive. It would have been flawless if that boy didn't decide to stick his nose where it didn't belong. Endeavor said in frustration. That timid, weak-willed child has no business here. What was Shoto thinking when he forged an alliance with him? Oh, I don't know, maybe that it would be nice to spend time with someone other than his bastard father. Natsuo suddenly piped up. Enji's face scrunched up as he glared at Natsu, who glared back just as intensely. Do you even care to look at how well a positive relationship is affecting Shoto? Of course not. Unless it ties in with your dream, it's pointless. Before Midoriya came along, Shoto barely ever spoke a word. Now he's having conversations, and for the first time in ages, I saw my little brother smile. So don't you dare take away another person that makes him happy. 2. Natsuo then stomped off after finally giving their father a piece of his mind. Endeavor only gritted his teeth as he scowled hideously at his son. Why that impudent, little. Off to the side, Fuyumi had her face buried in her hands. I take it back, it was awful. At least Dad didn't seem to notice what Midoriya and Yaoyorozu were doing under the table. Maybe I'll just keep that to myself. 5. Meanwhile, outside the Todoroki household, Shoto had overheard what Endeavor said about Midoriya, and only a portion of Natsuo's tirade. Midoriya and Yaoyorozu didn't seem to hear it though. Why your siblings were nice. Midoriya started. Sorry about what my father put you through. They couldn't see his face since he was staring at his feet with his hair casting a shadow, but they could hear the venomous resentment in his voice. It honestly made their blood run cold. Their thoughts were interrupted by Momo's driver pulling up. Thank you for your hospitality, Todoroki, she said with a bow. Izuku, would you like a ride home? Izuku heard her, but still had most of his attention on Todoroki. I was only having lunch with his family, but it was still pretty intense. Is it like that all the time here? He thought in worry. Momo, he turned his head to her. Is it okay if we make a quick stop on the way? Momo was a little confused, but accepted. What was more surprising was what he said to Shoto. Todoroki, there's somewhere I want to take you. Dagoba Municipal Beach. The three teens made their way down the stairs to the trash-free area. Izuku practiced fighting techniques. "Why did you bring me to your training beach?" Shoto asked, sounding annoyed. Izuku didn't take it personally, though. "Well, this is a good place to vent, you know. When I feel kind of backed up in my own head, I come here to fight my frustrations out." Momo looked at him questioningly, but he didn't notice it. "The sound of the waves is calming when you're tired. Not many people come around to bother me, feel free to let loose." Izuku was cut off by Todoroki placing his palm on the sand, and creating an instant glacier in front of himself. The huge mass of ice covered a third of the beach in an instant, and launched a huge portion of the trash out of its limits. The huge and sudden display of raw power from Todoroki nearly knocked Midoriya off his feet. Luckily he had Yaoyorozu to hold him. Todoroki exhaled with mist coming out of his mouth, as more than half of his body was covered in frost. "Sorry, I might have overdone it a bit," he said while walking towards his glacier and using his flames to melt it down. "I was angry, that's all." If that was a heatwave instead, he would have turned the beach into a glass floor. Izuku thought. Once Todoroki's body temperature was normal and most of the ice was melted, Izuku approached him. "Feel any better?" he asked. "Yeah, thank you." Shoto turned to fully face him with his neutral face. "Midoriya, would you mind if I came here to vent every now and then?" Izuku was stunned, but smiled. "Of course, I don't mind at all." Later, after a very tense lunch, and making a new acquaintance, he's Izuku's friend, but Momo just met him. Momo returned home and laid down on her bed. She immediately sat back up when she felt a pair of gentle hands rubbing her shoulders. "Izuku," she gasped at the sight of her boyfriend, who simply smiled at her. When did you? I'm here to make sure you're not still stressed." He cut her off as he kneeled on her bed behind her, and began massaging her shoulders again. Momo knew they would get in trouble if they were caught, but she couldn't help but melt into his touch. It got better when Izuku wrapped her up in a hug from behind. Izuku," he just sighed blissfully down her neck, making her tremble pleasantly. "Momo, about your proposal back then." The girl froze as she remembered getting down on one knee with a red face. "I have an answer for you." He was enjoying dragging this out. "I don't want to live without you." He ended it with a kiss to her neck. Reality. Momo shot up from her bed, clutching her chest and breathing heavily. She realized it was all a dream. Izuku was nowhere near her. That last thought was depressing to her. Oh dear. Dagoba Municipal Beach. Heaven-piercing ice wall. Shoto exclaimed as he displayed his ultimate move to his friends. "Impressive display of power, Todoroki. And you seem to have better control this time." Momo praised him. "It can be used as a barrier or platform, or for encasing enemies." Todoroki explained the usefulness behind this seemingly simple technique. Izuku was jotting down notes rapidly, muttering as he did so. Clearly able to do long and wide range, precision moves, though. Yes, Todoroki demonstrated by placing his palm on a discarded fridge and covering it in ice. "Your ice travels so quickly, fighting you without a strategy would be downright suicidal," Izuku said. "Izuku, I've also devised new moves with my quirk. Would you like to see?" Izuku nodded his head rapidly at Momo's question. She grabbed his hand and dragged him to a spacious part of the beach. The two were facing each other a few feet away. "When I tell you to charge me like you're going to attack." I'm not so sure about this. Could you maybe tell me what you're planning to go?" Without time to plan, Izuku just runs towards the Ravenet, who mirrors his action. Before they get within striking range of each other, two things fall out from Momo's shirt. A springboard and a flashbang grenade. The flash of light goes off as soon as she jumps off the springboard. The flash wasn't too bright in the middle of the day, so Izuku recovered quickly. When he did, Momo was above him with her wrist glowing pink and blue. A thin but strong rope shot from her wrist and wrapped itself around her boyfriend's ankles. She yanked, and he fell to the ground. Very impressive, he praised her as she blushed. "I got the idea from a pre-quirk era comic book about a web-slinging hero." 7. I could have done more, but I didn't want to seriously blind you with smoke bombs. She gave him a hand to help him up. Another day of hard quirk training down. Izuku was proving to be a good instructor for Momo and Shoto, always coming up with new creative ways for them to use their powers. In the late afternoon, they decided to call it a day. Momo was the first to leave, and Izuku was about to follow suit, but he noticed Todoroki looking conflicted. He was staring at his left hand as a small flame ignited in his palm. It stayed for only a second before he scowled and snuffed it out. "Are you okay, Todoroki?" Midoriya asked. Shoto just stared at the horizon. "I can't help but hate him," he answered coldly. "I don't blame you, you have every right to feel that way towards him." Izuku didn't know everything, but Shoto had opened up to him and Momo about a couple things. The quirk marriage between his parents, the brutal training since he was a toddler, how his siblings are viewed as failed creations, how he got his scar. Suffice to say, Momo and Izuku were horrified and grew a great dislike for the number 2 hero. It was certainly cathartic to talk about it with people who he'd come to trust. His best friends assured him that he didn't have to go along with whatever his sick father wanted. But you shouldn't be held back by him," Izuku said to him, causing Shoto to look back. "If you really want something, you have to be willing to go 100% for it. Limiting yourself to only using your right side because of endeavor is going to hurt you more than him in the long run. My mother told me once that resentment is like swallowing poison and expecting the other person to die." Shoto fully turned to face Izuku with glossy eyes and a slightly agape mouth. "Don't get me wrong though, I'm not saying you should accept him, but it's all up to you. You decide what your quirk is for and how you use it. I'm sure that, when the time comes, you'll do the right thing." With that, Izuku left Shoto to ponder. The icy hot teen looked at his hands as frost and fire manifested from them. "It's up to me, huh?" Todoroki muttered to himself. "That sounds like something mother said to me once. Shoto, it's your power, your decision to be who you want to be." With a bittersweet smile, Todoroki grabbed his things and walked home. "Midoriya, you've helped me so much. I'm grateful, truly." 4. Midoriya household. "So, how was training today, honey?" Inko asked, sitting across the dinner table from Izuku. "Today went really well. Momo's learned some new moves, and Todoroki's really coming along. It's easier to get him to open up to suggestions now." Inko enjoyed that her son had a girlfriend and platonic friend, people to keep him in wonderful company. "I'm sure those two will be incredible when they make it to UA's hero course. And they'll have you to thank for it." Izuku looked at his mother in mild confusion. "I don't doubt those two would excel, but you're coming up with ways for them to improve. Give yourself credit, Izuku, part of why they're doing so great is because they have an amazing teacher." Izuku felt a tug at his heartstrings. The thought that they would be better because of him never crossed his mind. It made him happy to think that his efforts were helping the ones he cares about. Todoroki household. After dark and after dinner, Shoto walks through his family's empty garden. He needed privacy for what he was about to do, especially from his father. He raised his left hand and it gave birth to a flame. Instead of snuffing this one out, he stared into it, letting it grow until it engulfed his entire hand. He raised his right arm to the night sky, and a large pillar of flames erupted. When he put out the flame, there was a warmth running through his body from his left arm. It was a comfortable warmth in the cool night breeze. When he used his flames, he remembered his friend's words. "You shouldn't be held back by him. It's all up to you, in the end." Shoto had a small smile as he went to his room to retire for the night. Yaoyorozu household. Momo sat on her bed, deep in thought about something. She looked back on her relationship with Izuku so far. His response to marrying her, their first date, their training sessions, their first kiss. She could only think of good things. Very good things. And when she asked herself if she made the right choice, her answer was always, undoubtedly. At this point, she's head over heels for Izuku Midoriya, and she knows he feels the same. All that's left is to seal the deal. Personally, she would have liked to take things a bit slower, but Endeavor just had to come along and complicate things. Despite that, Momo couldn't deny that a majority of her wanted this. Perhaps not right now, but she couldn't see herself with anybody else. His birthday is a week from now. Would that be a good time? Or would he prefer a more casual day? If I don't, then it's likely Endeavor will ask for my hand in marriage with Todoroki. That could be a disaster for his and Izuku's friendship. But, what about his and my relationship? I don't want to overwhelm him. Again. Momo sighed and walked over to her vanity. She pulled open a drawer and pulled out a little black box. After his birthday. I'll do it then. Time skip. 4 days. The week of Izuku's birthday, and he was spending time with Shoto and Momo. The trio were spending the day around town, looking for things to do, feel like normal teenagers. It was Shoto's first time feeling like he fit in with others. At an arcade, they played games and won plushed prizes. At a nearby vendor, they ordered crepes. Ah, this is just what I needed. Izuku sighed with the most blissful smile on his face. Eating crepes, hand in hand with his girlfriend, it doesn't get any better than this. Momo couldn't help her large smile and blush at him. Shoto, third wheel, Todoroki noticed they were in their own little world. And decided to interrupt it. Are you too? Thud. Shoto was interrupted by something small bumping into Izuku's leg. The 3 teens stopped and looked at a tiny ball of long white hair and a small horn. They realized it was a child, no older than 5 years old. Hey, are you all right? Izuku asked, reaching out to the little girl, but she receded a bit. Izuku stopped himself, but then continued, and gently picked her up to her feet. She's so light. They saw that the child's arms and legs were covered in bandages. Her bright red eyes seemed terrified. 6. Is something wrong? Momo asked. She only trembled and whimpered, making the 3 teenagers wonder what had her so terrified. Ah, you found my daughter. They all turned their heads in the direction that voice came from. Eri just started trembling more violently. Out of the alley emerged a man in a suit and green coat, wearing a doctor's plague mask resembling a bird's beak. His appearance was greatly unsettling, and his tone wasn't helping. 1. I'm so sorry for the trouble, kids. My daughter is a rowdy little girl. Said girl now had greater fear written all over her face. No, she looked like the very definition of traumatized. Her body language translated as much, as she suddenly clung to Izuku. Come on, Eri, we've bothered these nice people enough. The girl now identified as Eri finally spoke, but it was a whisper only Izuku heard. Please, don't go. Instinctively, he rubbed her back to comfort her. She's trembling like a leaf, and it only gets worse when this man talks. What has he done to her? Pardon me, but is your daughter all right? She seems hurt. The man interrupted Momo. Eri's an exceptionally clumsy girl. I think what she was about to say is terrified. Shoto spoke up, making the man look at him next. He matched Shoto's glare with his own. Izuku took the moment to reach in his pocket for a few seconds. I'm sorry, what business do you have to judge how I run my family? The man asked. I happen to know a thing or two about shitty fathers. Todoroki fired back. Todoroki. Momo scolded. Izuku put a hand on Eri's head and stroked it affectionately. It'll be okay, I promise. He gave her a nervous smile, but it vanished as he looked at her so-called father. What exactly have you put this girl through? The man's patience was wearing dangerously thin at this point. Here he was being interrogated by children playing heroes. He just let out a sigh. Kids these days, no respect for their elders. He moved his left hand to his right hand glove.